Somos Adán y Eva y estoy listo pa' tomar el castigo. Yeah. Y todo lo prohibido y los pecados que tú y yo hemos cometido. Son por ahí todas esas poses que tú conoces. Gracias a mi mujer, ni tu amigo, pero en vivo solo contigo disfruto el show, bebé.
Thanks for joining us here at the SPL Finch. I'm joined by Anatoly, and I'm happy to have him here with me as we move into the final day of week number 4. And it's a good fit for the end, I think. There should be certainly some fireworks in this set.
This is going to be an epic set, Finch. The first time we're going to be able to finally see Splyce play against none other than Rival that's been having some very long 5-game sets.
That's right. Rival clearly at this point no strangers to going longer in some of these games, so I think that if Splyce do drag it out, it's not something that'll catch him off guard. But let's go ahead and take a look at the standings real quick, see where all the teams are shaping up. You wouldn't be surprised to see a team like Dignitas up there near the top, but they got E-United right behind them. And like you said, Splyce still haven't played yet, still at 0-0-0.
And despite Rival being 1-1, you know, they did lose to Dignitas, the team that has been undefeated, but they took 2 games out of them. Dignitas also dropped a game against Luminosity, surprisingly enough.
Right.
And seeing how the Knights found that loss up against Rival gives some life and hope into Rival in this set against Splyce. But there's a lot of question marks in the air going into this set because we've seen most of these teams play, and we haven't seen Splyce play, and they're usually the innovators.
That's right. Remember when they came into Worlds, and they were the ones really doing that solo start over in duo lane. So I expect with how different things are at the start of the games, we'll see some innovation. But sort of like you alluded to, we're not going to be getting Splyce quite at 100% for this one, I imagine. It's Solar Troll that's in there for Divios right now. But Solar Troll, not a bad guy to pick up if you got to replace someone of Divios' caliber. Certainly still a very capable player.
I agree. I think there's a lot of similarities between these two players. The age specifically. Solar Troll coming into this match at 16 years old. Divios, when he first started competing under the Cognitive Red banner, he was around 14 or maybe even 15 years old. So mechanically, these two are very similar. The only difference is that we might be seeing is how do they synergize with the team, because SOT coming from the minor league doesn't have that kind of SPL experience, and at the highest of levels, communicating team fights, communicating rotations goes a long way.
And how used is it to all of this? I mean, it's all at LAN here now, right? We've got cameras going all over the place. I mean, interviews and stuff like that. It's a lot of other things you have to think about except for how do I play the game at the height of my capabilities. There's a lot that you have to think about in this situation that might be more than you're used to. What if the chair, is not in the comfortable spot that he's used to, or his arms are in different positions? Even when you play in different setups, that stuff certainly can factor in. So it's a lot that the young man has to consider to make sure that he's rising up to the level that these players expect.
He was at a LAN, I believe, last year under the minor league championship there, so he does have some experience at the LAN environment, but not with these other 4 group of players that have a championship belt under them. So I think that if you're going to be joining any team in the SPL caliber, maybe the least amount of pressure would be joining this team, knowing that the communication's there already between the 4 of them, the synergy's there. So all you have to do is just play your own game, because the solo lane or even the hunter position, all you're doing is farming at the beginning anyway, and then eventually transitioning into team fights. But it's not going to be an easy task going going up against Fineokay.
Boy, isn't that the big problem? Isn't that the writing on the wall? Is that Fineokay has gotten so much hype lately, and I think it's well-deserved off some of the impressive play he had, particularly in that set up against the Knights, where it felt like at times he dragged them to a victory. Well, Solo Troll's got a lot to do to try and stay even in that matchup. And normally Solo feels like if you have to have someone step in, that's the lane. Like you said, they don't directly communicate as much throughout that early game. But this is a Splyce team that's used to Divios rotating out of that lane. It's so difficult I think, to talk about just how important his unique impact can be. And Fineokay, this strong a player, is going to make it even harder for Solo Troll to live up to it.
I agree. I think going into it up against this kind of a player like Fineokay is going to make it so difficult for SOT. And I know he has a lot of a similarity God pool compared to Divios, but up against Fineokay, he's going to look to exploit that any way he can, especially when Captain Twig is right around the corner looking for any kind of early pressure.
That's right. This rival team no slouches anywhere on the map, not just with Fineokay or in the solo lane, but they continue to be star-studded. Twig, Panda Cat in the middle lane for them now, Polar Bear Mike, Arkle. And that's one more thing I wanted to touch on. As much as Splyce might have a slight weakness over there in the solo lane, I think there's a chance with someone of Moswell's caliber, a world championship mid laner, maybe you can really put Panda Cat through the paces here in this matchup and make sure that he is 100% up on making all those minute decisions that a mid laner has to make. Someone like Moswell could potentially punish.
That's true, and Panda Cat has been making a great transition from Season 500 position all the way to the mid position in Season 6. There was some question marks about how he would fare, but so far, it's been all good for Maxim.
It has been. He's been looking good so far. I think there was a little bit where you could see, okay, maybe there's some newness to this spot, but he covered over that incredibly well before too long. So there's a chance, though, that there's still an opening there for Moswell. You got to see how he does. What a tough opening for him, right? He played Heroin, he's played Zeros, and then straight into Moswell. That's tough mid-lane matchups he's had so far.
It has been, but so far, normally a lot of hunters that transition into mid, they would kind of stay to their hunter position by playing Soul, Chronos, or maybe actually physical hunters, but not Panda Cat. He's been sticking to the traditional mages, and I think that's been working out for the rest of his team, allowing Arkle to be that physical carry that they need from Rival.
And I'm glad you bring up Arkle. This duo lane is also one that's going to be very interesting in a matchup that I want to follow along with. But it looks like we're going to get a chance to actually hear a little bit from Splyce. Maybe not from the duo lane, though. Sounds like Solar Troll is standing by for the interview.
All right, standing by with Splyce solo laner, at least for today, it's Solo Troll. Solo, talk to me about this whole process. When did you realize you were going to need to be subbed?
It was like last Wednesday. They were like, yo, Sino legit said, you're our sub. He didn't ask, just you're our sub. And there was some rumors floating around. I'm like, I'm probably going to have to come out. And I was ready. And on Friday or Thursday, they were like, we need you to scrim with us. You're going to have to play an SPO. I'm like, I'm down.
How are you feeling? Do you feel like the practice Thursday and Friday made you prepared for today?
Yeah, we've been scrimming for like the entire week. I've been living with them in Alpharetta. It's been fun. We've been doing well. Just, yeah, it's been fun.
I mean, this is a world championship team. These guys are defending champs right now. Do you feel any pressure to try and keep up that momentum as they get their first set?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's some big shoes to fill. Divios is like one of the best laners, so it's kind of nerve-wracking that like I'm subbing for Divios. Like, I have some big shoes to fill, but I think I'll do fine.
Well, it's easy for you because it's just Fineokay on the other team. It's not like he's been playing super well so far this season or anything. What has he done that surprised you or impressed you the most so far?
Probably the Circuit solo, just in picking like Hell and stuff, just stuff that's kind of unexpected. Instead of the normal meta like warrior stuff. I mean, he can play that, but he of course has some pocket picks that I might not be expecting. So.
Solo, I'm sure you got pocket picks yourself and are ready to go. Good luck, man, and we'll throw it back to the desk right now.
Wow, that's good to hear from him. He didn't seem particularly nervous to me. I think he was realistic and understood it's a difficult task, but he also seemed like he was ready for it.
Oh, yeah. He has a lot of competitive experience with these players individually, playing against them in ranked. He's a very high-caliber ranked player. And
yes, he is.
He gets a lot of respect because of it, honestly, his grind, and then just the way he's able to handle himself on the battlefield and also handling himself in that interview.
He did seem comfortable to me. I think so, too. So that was one of those hurdles I was talking about. You know, this is all a little bit new to him with these quite bright of lights, so it's good to see him being able to handle them in that moment. But again, Solar Troll's not the only one I'm interested in. I was mentioning before this, that duo lane too. That's one more area that I think could be really interesting here. Polar Bear Mike and Arkle up against Aurora and Cyclone Spin.
Yeah, we saw yesterday how Neilma and Zapman was able to dominate that kind of a duo lane. I'm not sure if either of these two duo lanes up against each other will have that kind of advantage with how much synergy they've had, PBM and Arkle. Since playing together in the United Invitational, there was something that clicked, and I think that's why these two are there on a team now in Season 6. And you can't forget Aurora and Cyclone Spin going all the way back to Fat Chunks Assemble. These two have been playing together in and outside of SMITE and other games. So this should be one very dynamic duo lane.
I think so too, and it really does depend on how these two supports want to play. Remember, we haven't seen Aurora's way to handle that dynamic start for these supports just yet. Is he going to be in lane a lot? Is he going to be rotating around? We don't know. So whether we get the 2v2 or whether Aurora, Polar, and Mike are competing to have value outside of that is still kind of up in the air.
I think it's going to come down to, yet again, the world's meta, where either solo laner makes that rotation first and tries to make it a 3-on-2 or maybe just a prolonged 3-on-3.
Right. Certainly something interesting that we could be seeing, but it looks like we're going to get our chance to hear from Rival now. Fineokay, the solo laner, is standing by for his interview.
All right, standing by now with the other solo laner on this side. It's Fineokay. Fine, there's been so much hype around you and the way you've played so far this season. Do you buy into any of that?
No.
You're just...
yeah, I definitely do. I was thinking, like, towards the end of last season, I thought I was playing pretty well as far as like my role specifically. And I think like playing against Variety and Deathwalker, I finally get to like show that. So yeah.
What about your lane opponent today? It's Solo or Troll, not Divios like you may have been expecting. What have you seen from Solo during his time during the SML?
Solo's actually a really good player, and we talked about it. We think he's like definitely SPL caliber, and we're going to treat them the same we would with Divios. I think they're going to have a different playstyle though. I think Divios has a very specific playstyle, and it's really core to their team. So I do think that we might be able to exploit it, but we're still going to treat him like an SPL player today.
This is the first time we're getting a chance to see the defending champs here in Season 6 on LAN. Do you expect them to come out of the gates hot?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, world champs for a reason, and I also expect them to be trying out like specific things and some meta or something. And we're kind of their guinea pigs, so we're going to definitely try to learn throughout the set what their game plan is and their meta and everything. So.
Did you want to ask me a question so that you could dab, or was that like a joke beforehand? Because if you want to dab, you just can. I hope you know that.
I gave up dabbing for Lin.
Cool. No more dabbing for Fineokay, at least for a little bit. Good luck, guys, and throw it back to Finch on the desk.
Thanks, Ryan. Unfortunate they couldn't get that Fineokay dab, but it was still great to get to hear from him anyway. And I think they have the right mentality. They're going to be treating this Splyce team like the world champions that they are, even without Divios. And I think that's right. If you slip up on this team, they're definitely still good enough to punish.
Yeah, Fineokay, he's not going to dab, but he's going to definitely dive all backlines at the end of the day, no matter what. God, he's playing the Circuit the hell at the end of the day. So I'm excited to see him in this matchup.
Me too. And I'm very interested in, like he said, if Splyce are going to come out of the gates hot. I had a chance to talk a little bit with Aurora leading up to this event, and they're antsy. It's been so long since they played. They literally have not played since they won the World Championship. I mean, so getting to come up here on this kind of stage and play at this high level, they're ready for it, man.
And Fineokay said something that I wrote down, actually, how Divios is core to their team, and that there was a strategy that they prepared with Divios, and now they're looking to exploit a specific strategy that they're going to be handling up against SOT. So it's important to see how Splyce adapts to their new solo laner, because like he mentioned, that is a different solo laner where they have so much experience playing all the beginning of Season 5. Like, he brings the Cerberus together, he brings the Artio as well. Like, it's a flex pick for between him and also Aurora. The question is Solo Troll going to be flexible the same way Divios is?
Right, and we saw yesterday with the way Sam4 Soccer played that trying to punish the solo laner is definitely possible. He invaded the blue buff so many times in that game. I don't know if you're going to be able to hide Solo Troll away from a team this strong. They're definitely going to have to make sure that they're at least doing something to play with them, but we'll delay you all no longer. Let's go ahead and get the picks and bans ready for game number 1 here, Tully. And again, it should be Splycer in that second pick slot, so they'll be the ones with some pressure on it.
This is a key highlight matchup. I'm really excited to get into this. I almost just want picks and bans to be already over so we can get into the game, because I don't already going into this best of 5, I don't even know what kind of picks both of these teams have been kind of practicing.
Definitely not for Splyce,
because like the thing is, the way Rival play in general, they never really run the same thing twice if they don't have to, like the way they've been able to really flex onto any opponent, and that's why they've been having such long sets up against Dignitas, up against Knights, where game 1 picks and bans is never the same once you look at game number 5 picks and bans.
That's right. Not only do the metas develop over the sets for everyone, but Rival in particular, as you said, have been so flexible with the way that they played. They remind me a little bit of LG, except with just more success in that they're always doing something a little bit different in each one of these matchups. And they're able to do it through different players, too. We haven't talked very much about Twig, but he's someone that could certainly be a big problem for him. and his matchup with Sino in this jungle. So where some of these junglers get prioritized is going to be important too. I'm thinking the Achilles in particular, if that makes it through, if that ends up in the hands of one of these junglers and they're able to get off to an aggressive start, there's a lot to be on the lookout for.
A good important ban of this Upwatch, considering Rival is the first pick. They have a throwaway ban. It makes sense where in a world where Arthur and Achilles are like your number 1 and number 2, lingering right behind Achilles is going to be the Bellona, however, and I expect SOT to try to take that before the secondary ban phase.
Jormungandr coming out. Now this is interesting because this could potentially be for the solo lane. We've seen it over there, but it does have some flex potential as well if they want to take it out of it. I know I talked a little bit to Aurora, and he said that they had some playing with it in the support a little bit, but I think that it's largely considered strongest in solo.
Because the way you want to transition it is getting into the mid game at level 14 and higher with already like 3 to 4 items completed.
Right.
You could run this in support easily and look for ganks in mid lane potentially, but not having the most health or the protections can easily get exploited, or maybe forcing out the premature ultimate. And surprising to see a new wall pick out of Splyce. There's going to need to be a lot of peels and protection, but with Jormungandr and Nuwa, maybe the game plan is to kind of put pressure onto that solo lane with the Nuwa ultimate and just create a lot of chaos in these team fights.
That might be the idea, but I just love this from Splyce. I mean, what more could you expect? The first 2 picks of Season 6 SPL, and they're picking stuff that we really have not seen prioritized anywhere else right out the gate.
And because these are like mid to late game picks between Jormungandr and Nuwa,
Oh, Nuwa look for Arkle. I didn't even realize.
Rival should be looking for early game picks all throughout, trying to exploit that, making sure that Moswell is not going to be comfortable.
Yeah, anything you could do to try and not let him get to the late game Nuwa stage for free will certainly be strong. But Rival taking some time on these next 2 picks. I wonder if there's a chance they've been thrown a bit for a loop by these first 2 picks from Splyce. I have to imagine that unless they'd been scrimming Splyce specifically or something like that, that you wouldn't have predicted these would be the first 2 picks that would come out.
Ooh, wow. Talking about early pressure, Habwa definitely brings quite a punch. I think he's great at all 3 stages of the game. A little flexibility with where that pick is going to go. But if I were to guess, knowing Captain Twig, Habwa's probably going jungle.
There's definitely a good chance that this one's for Twig. I'm right there with you, Toli. As the Fafnir rounds out the first half of the pick phase for Rival, another strong Guardian that's risen up lately. And since it's likely they haven't picked their mid or Hunter yet, they could definitely still pick up some auto attack focused ones to come in and synergize with that Fafnir.
Still no Freya locked in by either team, and with Rom available, I'm expecting maybe that's where Rival really want to go because of the Fafnir pick, like you were mentioning behind. And this is a great pick of the Bellona because this kind of takes away the idea that Freya should be picked for Rival. So if I'm Splyce now, I'll probably either taking the Rama after bans are done, or I'm banning it away itself.
So right now it feels like Bellona in the solo lane, Yorm likely then support for Aurora and Nuwa in the middle lane, which means that we're still wondering on what they're going to be picking up for Sino and Cyclone Spin and what they want to take into the Hunter jungle. If that goes into those spots, of course, there still is some flexibility, and it is Splyce we're talking about.
That's right. Sino has played Bellona in the past. That's why I'm not sold that this Bellona is going to be strictly for solo or troll. Up against Achilles, however, I would probably rather see Bellona in that matchup if she can hold her own, especially with a Scourge, being able to sustain herself, even off of the Totem of Ku.
Certainly is strong as Serket and Kali get banned away. So it looks like Rival are not 100% sold on this Bellona being in the jungle just yet, covering some options there on one of these stronger late game carries. To be fair, with Jormungandr and Nuwa, you're already feeling pretty good about your late game. You definitely don't want there to be a Kali on there too, but maybe Rival could kind of let him have that and try and put some pressure on them in the early game.
It's possible, but like the thing is, like you were talking about, yeah, you want to have the early game pressure. So maybe Kali going through is pretty good, but a Willish definitely solid in the early game. And now with these 3 frontliners, it's looking like Jormungandr in the support position.
I think so too at this point with the Willish locked in, and this is one that Sino really does like to play. And just like we were saying, this gives them a ton of early presence. Feather Step still at level 1 and 2 feels like it does so much damage. It's even got a little bit of a mini root in there if you want to set up some damage, so she can be very strong in those early scuffles.
And even though Splyce doesn't have the most setup in the world for the Willish ultimate outside of the Jormungandr ultimate, Sino doesn't need that setup. He's going to be making his own setup and separation.
Jormungandr does have quite a few knockups at his disposal, though, so I think that this is definitely a pocket strat from Splyce. We really haven't seen this type of composition come out yet as the Nemesis comes through. Gotta think that this is to try and slow down this Yorm, because there's already a Bellona.
I'm a little surprised that it's not Rom Nemesis, knowing that Nemesis wants to dive. Rom can easily play cleanup crew, but it's looking like an attack speed steroid composition between Fafnir Coerce, Hachiman Heavenly Banner, some objective control. I wouldn't be surprised if Rivals PBM goes for a frenzy even at level 1.
That wouldn't be a bad idea at all. And it looks like it is going to be the Habwa in the middle lane after all for PandaCat. I know we were kind of considering whether it would be the Habwa or the Achilles, but with that Nemesis lock in, yeah, almost certainly that's going to be going to Twig. So both of these teams able to play some games throughout these pick ban phases.
It's going to be very aggressive in the duel lane here between this Ullr Jormungandr, or even if it's Ullr Bellona, that would be hyper aggressive, and I would love to see that.
Well, it would certainly be interesting. Let's go ahead and get into the action, and you can see the casters really are already ready. Rival up against Splyce. Game 1, let's get it over to Tom and Taco.
Here we are again. We're going to be ready for this one. Splyce versus... Oh, are you Aurora? Oh, okay. Well, Splyce versus Rival is going to be an interesting one. You heard the or you heard the desk talk about it. Not a real Guardian on the side of Splyce. Jormungandr might be there. We'll take a look.
A lot of, I think, interesting switch-ups. I mean, even seeing the new WA feels rather interesting considering how much pressure has been applied to this mid-jungle in Season 6. And so, new WA, not necessarily going to have all that early game presence that you're kind of hoping for, but she does provide, I think, a lot of important assets as the game continues to develop.
Oh, look at that. We've got the legend on the 1s and 2s. High Tech Peck, a.k.a. Big Play Manta Ray, a.k.a. Peckzilla, a.k.a. Raymond Pecky's Moon, a.k.a. Pecky's with a capital Y. Welcome to the broadcast.
I don't even know how to follow that up. That actually felt like a pretty epic segue to the introduction of Pecky's.
It is very difficult.
It's a very deserving one, though.
It is very difficult to follow up Pecky's. Pecky's one of the original observers going all the way back to launch tournament. Pecky's and I worked together on the launch tournament stage. The B stage, me, Pecky's, Fats, and Kret holding it down.
Hey, Big Play Manta Ray. We call him that for a reason.
Now here we are, Season 6, LAN time, and everybody getting set up. Love to see the team Rival bringing out what made them successful, I think, originally, was allowing PandaCat to be hyper-aggressive. And putting him on a character like Hebo, I think, is exactly that. But Polar Bear might going to do something different this time around and start in the middle lane.
Yep. BBM joining PandaCat, though, is going to give this opening for Splyce's duo lane to look for that purple buff Inbay. But instead, Aurora and Cyclone Spin looking for the proxy farm over the purple buff immediately, so this way Arkil is definitely being forced to stay inside of that lane, otherwise he's going to end up missing out on an additional wave if he tries to contest this purple buff. So pretty smart decision from Splyce, but does cost him their red in the end.
PandaCat gets in a little bit of trouble. The original duo lane here, PBM and Panda, mixing and matching. Captain Twig, of course, in the jungle on the Nemesis. Loving all the players on these characters here for Team Rival. I think everybody kind of has a character that they're very comfortable with. As we look across the way to Splyce, a similar situation. SOT plays a lot of Bellona, as we said, filling in for Divios this time around. I'm interested to see how this Jormungandr on the side's going to do, but this matchup here should be pretty interesting.
Well, the Jormungandr is, I think, a rather unique type of Guardian style for Aurora here, but it definitely fits the bill of what Aurora likes to do. Aurora likes damage. Any Guardian that can deal damage, you can bet that Aurora has probably experimented with a decent amount. And with Yorm, I don't think there's going to be too much variation. I think that the real mindset here is to kind of just full commit into these teamfight engagements. That's really what Splyce have allotted for, I think, and also that brief knockup period could serve pretty well for Sino, but I do definitely have some concerns for Splyce because there isn't a whole lot of hard crowd control on there.
Sure. Yeah, you get a bunch of knockups from the Jormungandr with the stealth. Obviously, the ultimate's a really big deal. Sano's going to be able to react off of those, which is definitely something worth bringing up. Mozzie's got next to nothing outside of the passive and the explosion, of course. And then Bellona, you need an ultimate. So, yeah, I'm with you there. I think that's why it's important that Cyclone is playing the Ullr, has an on-demand stun that's relatively easy to get access to.
Well, I'm just curious to see how Splyce plan on handling this Habwa, because as far as their range damage is concerned, a lot of these power spikes are not going to really be hitting for them until that mid-game stride. Cyclone probably one of the better, I think, coolers to try and deal with the sub wall. Got to be pretty accurate with that hail of arrows, blade arrows, of course, to try and get some of that range poke damage in. But I don't think Moswell or Sino can really afford to get all that up close and personal. I mean, even if Splyce wanted to try and collapse on the Fineokay, there's still Captain Twig to worry about with the Nemesis. And if he hits you with that Final Judgment, well, then you're in trouble as well, because there's just so much damage that can be applied to you now.
Exactly. So I honestly like both compositions. We're just going to have to see it unfold here. Aurora rocking the golden Jormungandr. I gotta say, nothing compared to Wolves with his diamond Jormungandr on the sticks. Just saying there, Aurora. You want to flex, you gotta flex right.
It's hard to flex over Wolves, though, let's be fair. I mean, all that guy does is flex on the solo lane, but...
Wolves plays about as much Smite, I think, as Divios does. Divios definitely one of the more involved players.
Divios, there will never be another player that hits jungle practice harder than Divios.
Very true. Very true. It is a big part of the reason why he's so powerful, but unfortunately not here today. Sino with the blink forward, going to use the beads, Arkle is, to get out of there. Sino immediately walks away. That gank was strictly there to look for the beads. Players hit level 5. They'll go for Cyclone and they'll go for Arkle again, and then he won't have the beads available.
I really like that gank from Sino so early on in a wheelish. That's kind of what you have to look for. And speaking of ganks, Captain Twig for a second there thought he was going to toss out that slice and dice, get some poke onto Moswell, but thinking better of it, just falls back to his own mid laner. PBM though, possibly looking for more, but Aurora making his presence known.
It's important that Polar Bear Mike looks for those disarms as well. A well-played Nuwa will hold her sixth auto to make sure that she can get that passive and find the root. That's a huge part of the Nuwa kit, and if you're not utilizing that, I think you're really not playing at the pro level. So when you're looking at these Nuwas jumping in and making sure to get that disarm from the Fafnir, really important. That's a very, very big tool that Nuwa has at her disposal that lower-level players kind of overlook.
I think that there's just a lot of micromanaging involved with this Splyce composition, and they're just going to have to be really on par with their execution and kind of just syncing all of their abilities up if they want to find success. But I think a lot of this is also riding on the back of Sino and how well can he really make this wheelish pop off in the early game, because this is arguably her best period of time to try and go off, at least in comparison to the Nemesis. But a strong start for Sino, which could possibly arise from the dual lane, since we did just see him pull those beads out of Arkle not too long ago. But if Arkle's smart, and we all know Arkle is smart because he's a pretty damn good hunter, he's probably just going to stay hovering that T1 on the dual lane, because if he steps up too far, man, it's so easy for these junglers to catch you off with a blink. And I think the Feather Step, having the ability to cripple out that Aijitsu, is just going to put Arkle into a position that he probably doesn't want to be in.
So Troll kind of holding his own here in the solo lane. Sano Shore, though, looking for that gank one more time. Gets warded out, though. Team Rival with impressive vision. Both of the teams really kind of have impressive vision. It's interesting watching. They are just mirroring each other's wards here on the left side. Very important play coming out from either side. Polar Bear Mike splits out the mid Harpies. Nice job there.
Well, Rival have done a great job, I think, at preventing Sino from getting some of that early game pressure that an Wheelish is known for. Captain Twig staying right on the course with this Wheelish, not falling behind in terms of jungle experience or anything of that sort. And Moswell and Aurora just trying to match what Fineokay and Polar Bear Mike are doing in the mid lane. It's really just all about the farm for right now. But that's almost a problem if you're Splyce, because they want that early game pop-off.
Exactly. Sino, like you mentioned, needs to get involved a little bit early. Fineokay, on the other hand, if he sits and doesn't do anything till he has 3-4 items, that's perfect. Because if you just sit there and ignore Hebo, and then he comes to the party and 3-shots your teammate, that's a perfect scenario for Fineokay.
And Fineokay's already got a ton of damage just from finishing that Book of Thoth alone. And without having the boots online just yet, Splyce do have a small window of opportunity, I think, to try and punish this wall in the mid lane, but it's not going to be easy.
Exactly, and Fineokay kind of tipping his hand, so to speak. When we see Paul or some of the more aggressive mid laners play or the earlierly aggressive mid laners, you go Bancroft. Polar Bear Mike wishing he had something like that. He's going to get pulled down to the tower, though. There's the transformation. Captain Twig used the ultimate to dissuade. Here comes the big World Worm right after PBM. The dodge is good both times. And Aurora's ultimate not successful enough. Guardians trade out ults, so do the junglers. And really nobody comes out on top. Pandacat, excuse me, has the damage.
Fineokay just looking to play as aggressive as possible right now onto Aurora, but might have been up a little bit more than he could chew. All 3 members from Splyce, though, still alive and kicking in that mid lane despite that crushing wave coming out. If it's only going to hit onto the Guardian, I don't think Aurora cares all that much.
Well, that's one of those things that will change as the game goes on. And what I was starting to get at here was we saw Pandacat, I think last time actually went tier 2 Bancroft and rushed the Bancroft talent. And that's really what you're looking for when you're trying to sort of get that early game pressure. But the Nemesis not looking for that, so book all the way.
It honestly felt like Pandacat kind of wanted to ult Moswell instead. When he first got that initial water cannon damage out onto Moswell, that burst was definitely there. I think if Pandacat had committed the crushing wave in Moswell's direction instead, he probably wouldn't have been able to find the first blood, but it would have been a heavy risk scenario because he would have ulted straight into that T1 tower, and it's almost better played for the Habwa to just bide his time.
And I think that's impressive because I think you're right. Hebo goes, ults towards the tower, gets a kill, and immediately gets traded out. It's 1-1, although Team Rival is able to pick up the first blood bounty. But I kind of like this play because knowing the bigger picture and how Pandacat has routinely been arguably over-aggressive, watching him kind of keep that at bay and work on his decision-making, his discretion, is very important, I think.
It's just player discipline,
exactly.
I think, at the end of the day. And for Pandacat, I think if he's a more inexperienced player in general, we probably see some other mid laners looking for that actual first blood opportunity, but it's just better suited, I think, for Rival overall that their Habwa doesn't die early on, because why give Splyce that opening to begin with to try and suppress him?
Especially if you go in the book, Arco gets flipped over after he gets pulled. Splyce chase out the carry's beads, good enough. Red buff invade, not good. Team Rival get their own red buff. Nice basic coming out from Panda.
Not every day you see the team that has the Nuwa looking for the early game invade there, but cheeky play from Aurora as well, coming up for the knockup and found it onto Arkil. But without that ultimate and without that purification beads, Sino could definitely make a reappearance on this duo side. But it's been tough for Sino just because of how strong this map vision continues to be for both of these teams.
You see Pecky's lighting up the mid lane there, or Splyce, and Pecky's highlighting it rather. Big old war in the middle lane will show where the rotations come out from both the mid laner and the jungler, and perhaps more importantly, tell you when players are in lane versus in the jungle. If you're not there without any minions, it's a little bit of a question mark.
And a lot of times, you know, some people back at home might wonder, well, why do they just stick the ward in the middle of the lane? It's because you get the branch off direction that they're headed in, so you can give an indicator towards your dual lane or your solo lane, hey, the mid laner's hovering this side of the map,
right.
Probably just looking for back harpies, but be careful.
The unknown can certainly be a very scary piece of information. Lack of information can be the scariest piece of information for sure, especially when dealing with such burst characters like the Habwa and even what Nemesis is able to do. So got to watch out for that as the game tumbles on. But 0 kills so far, tied up here at 29,000, just 11 minutes in. You might have expected to see some more out of the Wheelish. You might have wanted to see some more out of the Wheelish. Now that we're kind of trudging towards this mid-game, it's certainly a conversation to be had.
And I want to make it clear, this isn't because, oh, hold that thought though, Solar Patrol.
No,
could have been in a little bit of trouble, but no further aggression from Captain Twig. So getting back to that original thought, Sino, it's not that he hasn't been trying to be aggressive. He's definitely been looking for it, just like he's looking for Arco right now. Ultimate's going to be expanded from Moswell as well, but this Hachiman just continues to survive that mounted archery, such a strong disengage.
Yeah, the CC immune ult, certainly something very, very important, but Aurora's going to full commit. Polar Bear Mike going to get knocked up. Last hit will go to Cyclone. First blood for Splyce, the defending world champions. It takes them 12 minutes, but they get on the board just the way they like it. The red buff goes their direction as well. And a very small lead for the black and yellow.
Cyclone Spin still wants more, though, onto Fineokay. Axe going to be off the mark, however, and a couple of the other abilities afterwards also not able to find a home, but it's just a warning sign right now to Rival. Splyce are already proving that they want to be the aggressors into Rival's jungle, so now it's up to Rival to try and find the appropriate response. But if Polar Bear Mike's going to be made the victim every single time, finding a response could be tough for Rival.
That's true. That's totally true. Gotta keep Polar Bear Mike alive for a little bit of these engagements. Excuse me, I'm trying to find my words here. With that said, though, again, just bringing up the Hebo factor, you're going to get to a point where you focus the Polar Bear Mike, and in the time that it takes you to kill the Guardian, Panda Cat has killed 2 of your carries with a knock-up Crushing Wave combo. So we're not there, and that's why Rival kind of lose that team fight. But as long as they stay 1, 2, 3, 4,000 gold within, you always have to worry about this mid lane mage.
I do think it depends, though, because, sure, Hawa has always been known to deal a load of damage. Oh, Polar Bear Mike could be in trouble yet again. Over the wall and into his grave.
Sino, what a play right there. Going to be answered by the jungler on the right side. Ultimate from Captain Twig on top of Fino. Couple of dashes. Slice and dice is good. Lining up the solo or troll. Where's it going to come? Fineokay looking for it. And solo or troll goes down to the gank. Splyce answer back by an attempt on the Gold Fury.
Aurora looking to zone out Panda Cat. This is Wise keeping his distance, but keeping this Hawa at bay. Splyce going to take down the Gold Fury, and Arkill could very well follow suit. But mounted archery just going to get him out of there in the nick of time. Sino, though, not willing to give up the chase just yet.
Nope, gonna make sure Arkill goes all the way back. Miles Wall gonna head to the sky. But very classic basic smite there.
But look at what it does to Arkill. He was already pretty delayed on that back to base,
yeah.
and now Splyce are going to have an opportunity, I think, to try and pressure out this T1 tower in dual lane while they're waiting on Arkill to return for Rival.
This was such good textbook smite. Gank on the left side means the enemy jungler goes to the right side, means the original team that had the gank on the left side now doesn't have to worry about the jungler or the solo laner looking at the Gold Fury. This was just classic response to that triple beam balance I always talk about.
And it's a little unfortunate for Solo Troll that he did wind up dying in the end there, but what's important is how long Solo Troll forced Captain Twig and Fineokay to stay diving him underneath that T1 tower. Solo Troll knew that Splyce were going to go for the Gold Fury as soon as Captain Twig showed his face in that solo lane. So even though the Eagles rally wasn't enough to create a gap between himself and Fineokay from that fatal strike, the important part is he just bought time.
Yeah, that's a win. Solo laners are largely, the Swiss Army knives, as I said, and sometimes you got to play the Guardian role and say, all right, I'm going to sacrifice myself and let the team capitalize because of it. The amount of gold that SOT gives Team Rival definitely is very small compared to how much Splyce gets for the Gold Fury. So a nice team play there coming out from the substitute solo laner. Nice job.
Gotta be mindful, though, if you're Splyce. One time around for Solo Troll to go down, not too big of a deal. Does cost them a T1 tower in that solo lane, so a decent response from Rival for losing the Gold Fury.
Tower's
because
good.
that map pressure being opened up will make things a little bit more complicated for Solo Troll if he's trying to be more aggressive. So Splyce definitely need to be mindful of where their solo laner is at. But it's really just the fact that Fineokay is now able to do this and just rotate on in.
Just blink on top of Aurora, who immediately goes under and pops up. Polar Bear Mike avoids the stun. There's an ultimate. Full commit on a Cyclone spin. Sino trying to run as well. Up on the Suku, there's going to be damage coming out from Uller. Sino's low, but the damage can't be found. Sino already out of the ball game. Cyclone spin going to follow him as well. Splyce suffer a ton of damage, but Team Rival unable to confirm any of the kills.
And there's nothing up on the map either for Rival to try and take away from Splyce. Cyclone and Aurora are going to still be able to maintain control of their own purple buff. So in the end, all that really happens is Rival use 3 ultimates to try and chase down Splyce. But since the hard disengage is there, there's no tower to try and collapse on. There's no Gold Fury because Splyce already took it. And, well, Fineokay doesn't really hurt him to rotate in because his tower's gone anyway. He might as well start looking for some of these aggressive moments.
He's got a level lead above the direct opposition. You can see 17-16 over there in the solo lane. 2-1 in the kills and 44-43 in the gold. So a very tight game here. Pings coming out. Players are aware that the right side Harpies are going to spawn and easily Team Rival pick them up. Panda Cat's starting to get scary here. Finally has some penetration. Goes to blue boots to match the mana with the book, sure, but now he definitely needs some pen.
The last thing you ever want to see a Hawa have is that cooldown reduction.
So
as
scary.
if they aren't fast enough on that first and third ability. Well, Fineokay trying to make them 10% faster.
The best, though, is the upgraded bracer. You get the upgraded bracer, and then you water cannon, bracer, water cannon. You laugh, but the old Fortnite double pump, you got to watch out for that, man. Fineokay comes through and just, wah, wah. Not going to be the case today, Arkle says to Sino as he walks over a ward.
Sino knows. The second that you start seeing the enemy hunter disengage, but Mazwell probably wishes he had somebody to help him out right now. Going to have to go straight up into the air on that new wall.
Easy.
But Fineokay, just aggressive as ever with the blink in too underneath the T1 tower. He knows what he's capable of enduring, and that T1 not so much of a threat to a level 18 Achilles.
That said, I really like Mazwell's Nuwa pick because of that reason. Nuwa into these basic attack characters like Nemesis, who kind of goes. She can work both directions, right? You see the ability base come out, but with Asi and Ikaval, I think she's very. You can always go into the basic attack, but she sticks on you no matter what. And Nuwa, I think, escapes characters like that very well because of her ability to literally go to the moon. So, a nice choice there for the mid lane of Splyce.
A lot of lull in the action, though, between these two teams. I think it's not necessarily because Splyce wanted to be slow, as stun for stun traded out, hammer for axe, but right now Fineokay is the one who's under fire.
Okay. He's going to walk on out. Mazwell's going to confirm that kill. Splyce with another one. Now coming down the middle lane, looking for more. Sino going to blink on top of the Habwa, who uses the ultimate to get out of jail. Now everybody looking at Arkle, but he does have that horse available, so no big deal.
But people just respond. That Oni Fury is up for grabs right now, and Splyce want every single part of it. Already starting to pull onto this goal. Play remark. Arkle and Captain Twig
25,
are local, but
10,
they don't want to go
5.
in.
Splyce are able to confirm it, no problem. Rival now looking for something. A knock up on solo or troll won't do it. Nice positioning by Splyce there after they take the Gold Fury. The only two people that are able to be hit by Team Rival are the tanks. Aurora and Solo or Troll, you can hit them. It's not that big of a deal.
Well, without Fineokay to back up Rival there, I just don't think Fineokay felt as though he had any openings to look for the crushing wave. It's tough for a Habwa, and this is the exact scenario that we were talking about. And Splyce, the one thing that this team is definitely known for is being the tank killers.
Yeah.
That's how they won a world championship, was by introducing this new meta style of play where you just kill the tanks.
Got to be careful of that one. Polar Bear Mike, 2 deaths already. Fine has died as well. Sino finds another fantastic pull. Fineokay at half HP. Very, very tanky. Splyce couldn't kill that one this time. Pyromancer down to about 40%. Healing as both teams keep leashing it. SOT pushing players out with that bludgeon, trying to create some space for his team. And the Habwa just just farming, and I think that's intelligent. Pandacats find himself down about a level, so staying to the lane and not losing too much over the Pyromancer. I like that look.
Splyce are definitely investing a lot into the penetration type of builds, and I think that's the right call if all you're looking to do is destroy this front line from Rival. Fineokay now, his tower under duress. T1 going to be sieged, no problem whatsoever, but it's a knockup after the fact that Fineokay wasn't expecting, and now comes the dive from Splyce, but they're going to let it go short underneath that T2 tower. They'd rather look for the objective instead.
The minions are here, so Splyce will walk in with the opportunity. The tier 2 does go down nice and easy. Captain Twig on the back line. Everybody on Splyce has to be aware. Solo or Troll jumps forward. Stun into knockup. Into you're gone. Polar Bear Mike eats it for the 3rd time this game. Splyce continuing to move forward. Captain Twig cut in half by a bladed arrow. Fineokay able to answer back here, Taco, but it's a 1 for 2 so far.
Fineokay, though, still looking to give chase. Arkle now coming back up with Pandacat, but it's not exactly the best case scenario for Fineokay here. Right on top of a ward, all is Splyce knowing his whereabouts. A roar, and he's out of there.
There's the big boy. It's about going forward. It's about going forward. Half HP for the Guardian. And safe and sound behind enemy lines.
I love what Cyclone did there, kind of just weaving in between to find the snipe hail of arrows onto Captain Twig. Really well played by the Uller. It was just the trade-offs. Once Sino was looking to disengage, Cyclone just immediately takes over and is like, well, I've got the range to try and follow up here. So really good stuff, I think, from Splyce in the way that they handled the target focus of that last engagement. But it's just how aggressive Splyce is able to play right now that's concerning for Rival. They really have not been able to find any sort of gaps into the backline for Splyce. The disengage has just been so strong from this team.
Well, what Splyce has done really well has been Sinosure. Right here in the jungle, this Awilish, he's gotten 5 assists on 5 kills, and I'm pretty sure all of those assists have come via pulls. Sino pulls in Fineokay or Polar Bear Mike, and that's who they target. You were right. They made a name for it, killing the tanks, and that's what Splyce looked to do. Take down one of the front lines so you can either make your way to the back line or make it so the back line feel uncomfortable, re-engaging, and you can take whatever you want from the bank.
And I think Splyce liked the way the last team fight broke down because the confidence is definitely there. This team is still pushing forward, and Aurora constantly lurking underneath, looking to knock up anybody who steps up too far.
Meanwhile, he makes a target of himself. There's the pull one more time. Fineokay can't even dash out. Sino finally gets a kill for himself off of another fantastic pull. The Awilish is out of control, Taco. Both team enabling it via knockups, him finding knockups, players jumping. Team fight off of the Fire Giant now. Splyce is looking to cut down Rival one more time. Sprint's good, and the blue team will exit.
Panicat, though, still has both of his relics. A shell still available as well on the side of Rival, so this Fire Giant is not guaranteed to anybody just yet. Solar Troll, Aurora trying to take the aggro of it for their carries, and Splyce just looking to keep ward vision in their favor. 400
power plus for the Hebo. Certainly a strong look as the Obsidian Shard is there, and I think that was really what I wanted to see out of Panicat. A ton of pen now with the Ob Shard and the Spear of Dezo. And now he's going to start to swing. And this has to be a pretty scary spot. That said, Splyce still do have a 6,000 gold lead.
I like the way that Rival played that, though. They lost Fineokay, sure, but they were still able to keep Splyce at bay on that Fire Giant, just trading off who would kind of poke a little bit more forward, because it does force the attention of Splyce off of the objective, and now it gives Rival the opening to look for a gold tier here, but Splyce has tried to contest it.
Nice.
Just nothing that Cyclone Spin can really do other than toss out that Blade of Arrows, Hail of Arrows combination, and unfortunately just falls short, but Rival patient as ever, I think, and that is why they found their payday.
Very, very important gold, Fury. Make no bones about it. Like, Team Rival lose the team fight on the right side, but they don't lose everything. My old phrase, the stuff after the stuff, right? If you can lose gracefully, we talk about that with respect to the solo lane matchup a lot, but losing intelligently that team fight, that enabled Rival to continue to walk across the street.
Something else that's pretty important as well, Fineokay finishing off that Onis. I think this is going to be that last little bit of defensive structure that he needed to try and stay alive long enough for Rival to find a response, because that's been the main problem for Rival so far, is that Fineokay has kind of just died before anybody has a chance to even counteract that. And if Fineokay can survive for a couple seconds longer, well, now it's Mike's turn.
Yeah, Mike's going to be targeted out there. Big ultimate coming out from Aurora. Going to go to the back line. Meanwhile, the rest of Team Rival pushing up towards Splyce's side of the map. PBM jumps on in. There's Aurora over the top one more time. Solar Troll gets cut down by the Hunter. Now it's a 5-on-4. Team Rival with the numbers, but not the HP bars. Splyce has done a ton of damage, just unable to find the kills. Red team going to push forward. Hail of Arrows is good. Bladed would do it, can't find it. Now Fineokay is there, but Arkle answering back. Sino gets hit by the horse. Cyclone Spin gets hit by the horse. Moswell finishes off what Arkle started, and Fineokay on the run. Aurora's underground, and Fineokay wants to put him there on his own terms. 4 players in Splyce jerseys, down for the count, tied at 6, and a 3,000 gold deficit for Team Rival after a fantastic team fight. That's how you get back in the game.
Just a little bit too deep there for Splyce. They should have just taken the poke out of Mike and left it at that, but getting a little bit baited out and not realizing the wraparound flank was coming through from Arkle. And Arkle's patience as well with the mounted archery, I think, is the real saving grace of that engagement.
How do you not use that at that point? Aurora's here and lurking. Splyce have to be aware. The big worm can just do this, but he gets executed. Fineokay takes care of it while he's in the worm
But
form.
they stole the Fire Giant, and that's all that really matters because Solar Patrol is going to get cleaned up in the process, but no enhance for Rival after such a beautiful
Boswell
team fight.
Get some Fineokay. Nuwa Ultimate. Not to be outdone, the Splyce mid laner finds it with the global shot. Man, what a sequence.
I am fairly confident that with his dying breath, Aurora took down that enhanced Fire Giant and just salvaged this mid game for Splyce. Because if Rival get that FG, I can assure you that's not the only thing that's going to wind up falling. Yes, Splyce has had really strong responses, but now we're starting to approach the stage of the game where Havois begins to matter a lot more. Same thing for Arkle on this Hachiman. We already got a little bit of a glimpse into some of the damage that this Hachi can actually exert if Splyce go a little bit too deep.
Yeah, no. Just going all the way back to that sequence, Splyce get a decent team fight. They start to push forward, even though Rival get the first kill. And it becomes Splyce get the first kill on Fineokay, and they push forward. But Rival, you mentioned Arkle's patience. How do you not use the mounted archery to escape that threat? That's really what happened. I think that Splyce kind of just assumed.
Well, Arkle's positioning was pretty far back in his own defensive line, so I'm not too surprised that he didn't actually have to expend that ultimate to escape because he was just smart with his positioning beforehand. But it's the fact that he knew when to reinitiate that goes to show, even if you're Splyce, you can't take that retreat for granted. You can't just assume that it's not Rival trying to, bait and switch.
Kenny and Mike, Arkle and Polar Bear Mike have really good instincts when it comes to the game. You're a high-level player. You can just feel when the team fight turns sometimes. And one thing that I always give Mike and Arkle credit for specifically is that feeling and the understanding. And part of me wants to believe I'm not in there with the players right now. Part of me wants to believe Polar Bear Mike and Arkle turned because they turned at the exact same time. Obviously, there's a call there. But I think that's just two people understanding the scene.
They're probably just calling out, hey guys, they just used everything. Let's go.
Yeah, all the way in. Oni Fury about to respawn. Team Rival, despite their success, gets the Fire Giant snatched off of a great play out of Solo Troll and Aurora. Now find themselves again 5,000 gold down.
And the best part about that enhanced Fire Giant steal is that it keeps Splyce in the lead. We were talking about how Rival could have possibly gotten a lot more after the fact by having means to push into the structures at last, but Splyce now still holding on to the 6,000 gold lead or so, and the gold maybe not as relevant right now since most of these players are approaching their finalized item builds, but I definitely think that Splyce are just going to have that momentum still in their favor.
Well, Rival, one of the big things for them is they have this Hebo. He's sitting there at the bottom of the net worth, needs a little bit more farm, I suppose, but the damage needs to come as well. He hasn't really had an opportunity to be Hebo. Oni Fury down to half as Splyce gets harassed and then pushed. Captain Twig gets one, but Moswell able to answer back as Cyclone goes down. There's Aurora with the big boy ultimate, finding some knockups, but ultimately not too much after the fact. Splyce, sans a hunter, reinitiates on the Oni.
But Aurora, not the healthiest Guardian to have around this Oni Fury. He's got to keep an eye out. Fineokay has already used that Fatal Strike, however, so that's definitely going to benefit Aurora just a little bit more so, knowing that cooldown isn't available right now. But panicking on this Havois, it's so hard to want to look for any objective knowing how much damage and how easily Panicate could possibly steal.
Threat of activation is one thing, but he just hasn't done it yet. Second to the last on the player damage. One team fight can put him up into the middle stats, but it certainly needs to happen. We keep talking about the threat. Make it happen. Rival finds a knockup thanks to Panicat onto SOT. Here comes Sino. The ultimate from Panicat completely misses. The chase onto the solo laner will be fruitless. And the rest of the team looks at the Oni Fury. Arkle just going for it by his lonesome. And that's really what the team was looking for. Gold Fury, Oni Fury specifically, goes down. And that will shorten the lead one more time.
I think Sino's ultimate just came back up, and that knockup that Aurora was looking for a little bit too soon. Might have been at the end of that lurking ability, but unfortunate stuff there for Splyce because Arkil, wise as ever, staying on top of that Oni Fury. Now it's going to be Rival that get the boosted minion waves and a little bit of gold to their pocket, so can't ever really complain about either of those two things. But I'm also just keeping an eye on Rival because they might have been able to pull the Oni Fury, but look at how long it took them to finally commit to that decision. And that is just the constant threat that I think Splyce has embedded into the back of their minds now, where Rival can't really afford to just have their front line out in the open.
Yeah, Fineokay and Polar Bear Mike, it's really up to them to keep themselves at bay, not just their teammates either. Ton of damage coming out from Splyce, and it's been really, really, really effective dealing with Panicat. Just has not been safe. And the question there is that Panicat not being able to find the situation, his team not setting him up, is it a composition problem? Why is Hebo such a non-factor?
Panicat just doesn't want to over-aggress, because if he goes just a little bit too deep, all that damage is meaningless when you get exploded just as quickly as you can dish it out. Well, he might be able to get some damage on, but even then, look at that last crushing wave, for example, by the Oni Fury, was trying to find that last little tick of damage onto Solo Troll, but the Eagles rally, able to bail him out, and even with the crushing wave, didn't close the gap enough. But Rival can still kind of just force presence with this Hubwa, and that's why they're marching down the mid lane right now, because Panicat's giving them, I think, a large zoning presence.
So even though the numbers aren't there, he's still largely doing his job just by saying, hey, I could. What if I?
Well, the trade-off is starting to happen now because Splyce was mostly about the early to mid game, and Rival did an excellent job at preventing Splyce from snowballing as hard as they probably would have liked with this a Wheelish Uller especially. So now that we're even deeper into the match and we're starting to be in that late game area, this is where a Hubwa, a Nemesis, and a Hachiman really begin to take off. And it's tough, I think, for Sino or Cycle and Spin to try and match that same level of impact, simply because their gods have a difficult time finding those openings into this amount of damage.
Really what needs to happen is Splyce needs to continue. You are right, this is a mid-game composition looking for the late game. But the knock-up, the pulls, that's how Splyce got here, and that's how they need to kind of close this one out. That said, Rival has not only tied it, but technically taken a lead change. It's 100 gold, so it's really just technically 70 gold wave to wave is the smallest of leads. It is absolutely a tie situation, which is huge, considering Rival were down almost 10,000, 6,000 at some point, I think was the peak. You see the experience also in Splyce's favor for the majority of the game.
This is anybody's game by now, though. It's 35 minutes and climbing. Either of these teams could win an engagement. It really just all depends on who gets the better head start over the other. And Splyce has, for the most part of this game, been the ones being the proactive initiators. Aurora, one more time, looking for Panicat, but that water carpet going to get him out of there just in time.
Had a sniff, understood where the world worm was. Fire Giant presence, Team Rival seem to have control of the area, pushing into Splyce's front yard. Aurora on the back line looking for Panda, gets the knockup, no pull. There's the defensive ultimate. Solo Troll on the chase. Maswal combines one more time. Aurora shoves Panicat all the way into the ground with the big boy ultimate. Captain Twig on the run, and he'll get hit. Hail of arrows, number 11 for Splyce. Cyclone Spin finds his personal number 3, and they open the door to the Fire Giant.
And right away, it's all just going to come down to the same fact. Aurora threatening Panicat, just wiggling his way around underneath the ground, but it was the immediate Aegis Force, and Splyce just did not hesitate. They immediately looked to smother Panicat. The crushing wave was forced out prematurely, so of course the only target Panicat hits with that is Aurora, and anytime a Guardian is face tanking Hubwa ult, I don't think a team could be happier.
That's exactly what you're looking for. If anybody's got to get hit by the wave, it should be the front line.
You see that damage to the towers?
Yeah. There's a lot of attack speed going on here. Sino, of course, is going to contribute to that as well. Unless he's dead. Arkle sends Sino all the way back to school. Polar Bear Mike in trouble, gets jumped on and trounced by Maswal. Big ultimate that way, and Arkle Finds himself low, but the bird is done. And Splyce on the retreat. Sino trades his life out for mid lane Phoenix. Everybody says worth.
And Solo or Troll probably just loving being able to dive in with the Eagles rally.
Yup.
10% health now. That's probably the third or fourth time this game we've seen him do it. But the only reason why he's doing that is because he's trusting Splyce to follow him up. And every single time, Splyce has made sure to be there to try and help their solo laner survive, and it works out.
Bologna, the presence of Bologna when it comes to sieging is so important. The numbers on that ultimate, when it comes down what Solo or Troll is able to provide, are really, really big. You can see 35 protections, 50 extra power for a full 10 seconds. That's absurd. Also, yeah, you're doing damage and stunning somebody, but you jump into that Phoenix, like you said, and all of Splyce surge forward. They've extra tanky, extra damage. You talked about how quickly the bird went down. You've got Sino poking it with the stick, Cyclone Spin with his attack speed stim, and an extra 50 power. Everything's gonna melt.
Solo or Troll might not be Divios, but he sure is getting the job done all the same for this Splyce roster right now. And with that enhanced Fire Giant around their waist for a little bit longer here, it's only a matter of time, I think, Tom, before Splyce start rearing their heads towards that dual lane side. The sole T2 tower that lives on the map right now for Rival. And if Rival want to take a defensive stance upon it, sure, it's a possibility. But I also think that it's a rather risky one that they're probably better off leaving back at home.
I agree. Definitely sometimes worth to be a little bit more careful, reined in. 7,000 gold in the lead for Splyce right now. They've got a dozen above Team Rival's 10. Rival wrestled back into this one, Taco, but Splyce took the wheel right on back.
The problem for Rival, though, is that now Splyce don't necessarily need to look for the Phoenix. They already have their opening via the mid-Phoenix being sieged on that last base push. So if Splyce really wanted to, they could possibly even just look to choke point down the center of the map for Rival and then just look for kills.
With the way that they've been keeping Panicat at bay, normally I would say don't do that. Normally I like the better safe than sorry approach. But Panicat has just been a non-factor because of how Splyce has been playing. Really not a, not the worst player around. It's Splyce has forced that situation.
Some good damage, though, coming out onto Solo or Troll and Aurora for Rival. But it's going to take a little bit more than that to deter Splyce from looking at this left side Firebird. Sino hovering the mid lane as well, drawing the attention to Captain Twig. Solo or Troll, first one inside of that Phoenix area, but it's Aurora who's taking up the bird.
There's the flag on the left side. Panicat's going to be the target. Arkle gets his Aegis forced out. Captain Twig takes care of Solo or Troll. A poorly placed flag, but Splyce still able to make it work. Left side Phoenix goes down. Solo or Troll traded out this time for a bird. And like I said, Sino was doing last time. SOT still saying worth.
And Aurora, by the way, that three-man knockup at the very end for the disengage to guarantee the safety of his retreating backline. Splyce just continue playing this so well, and I think it's really just Aurora for me. It has had a standout game on this storm.
Crazy. It's crazy. And it's funny because, as we've seen Jormungandr, I have said in no uncertain terms, solo leader. And a lot of people have said that. And you opened the match going, this is an Aurora Guardian.
And I think the crazier part to me is the fact that there isn't a single person out there right now at pro level play that's thinking, this guy's a Guardian. Every single pro that I know of, at least, is just kind of hard reference this god as being a solo laner or possibly even just another god to deal damage or somebody that can't really do much of anything. And Aurora, I think, kind of just proving everybody wrong. And I find myself to be in that same category even, because I definitely was skeptical of how well this Jormungandr would actually work out for Splyce, but I think it's just the player combination as well, giving Sino a god that he's not only comfortable with, but proven on. Wheelish is not an unfamiliar god pick for Sino. It's been a while since he's had a chance to bring it out, but this is definitely his style of play.
Can't give him Naja, can't give him a Wheelish, can't give him the Freya. Was the Freya one of his? Probably not. It's been a while since we've seen the Freya in the jungle. I still have memories of Pon doing it, don't worry.
Once upon a time, Miguel.
Once upon a time?
That's how you want to make it work. But Aurora, right now, just looking to play zone DD. Polar Bear Mike going to be the first one from Rival to try and make his way into this hands. Fire Giant, they don't want to let it go for free, but it's already too late. Splyce have got it.
Aurora looking for the knockup. Solo Troll jumps right into some Panda Cat business. Panda Cat finally getting himself involved here. The run, not good enough for Splyce. Arco with a long-range shot, cuts down Moswell, knocked up briefly, but he turns around and gets the Nubleon on top of Aurora. The dash forward from Team Rival. Taco, if this fight goes this way, look at the respawn timers. Team Rival could just walk into the base if they play this right.
Well, right now, Mike's already going to commit the Draconic Form. He wants this Coerce onto Arco.
This is
They're
it.
looking for the right side Phoenix. Cyclone Spin going to be made
This
the
is
target,
it.
but buying a little bit of time. There's no one attacking the Phoenix, though.
Polar Bear Mike gets a kill, still 40-plus seconds on everybody. Solo Troll with half a minute. The Phoenix is going to go down here. Team Rival surging into the base at the moment. Solo Troll is up in 25. Taco, this is going to be it. Team Rival looking at the Titan. 50% already down. Panda Cat takes care of Sino. This was Splyce's game up and down, and Rival steal it. That's a robbery. Game number 1 to the Purple Squad.
That punish on the Enhanced Fire Giant, the one time that Splyce don't manage to perfectly disengage, and it's just a full-on collapse from Rival.
Really?
And the way that 180'd as well, it was just so rapid. It didn't even feel like there was really much of a response time given to Splyce. I think it just started off, though, with Moswell going a little bit too far away from the rest of the back line because Cyclone and Sino got out. But when Moswell got caught, that was kind of the end of it for Splyce.
That is a heartbreaker. You see Sino with his head in his hands, just a lot of confusion. Polar Bear Mike, though, take the W. Certainly not happy how that one went. Rival had moments of brilliance, but certainly not their game up or down. Panda Cat, low player damage, low involvement. You mentioned why. Splyce did a great job of keeping Panda Cat at bay, and perhaps the threat of the hobble was good enough, but definitely need to see more out of young Max if we want to see this one go in the favor of Rival.
I think the other problem, too, was just the fact that at the very end as well, Solar Troll was off the mark. That was the first Eagles rally where he kind of knew he would be the sacrificial lamb there, but he put it a little bit too far ahead of where Rival was trying to collapse forward into. So by missing that 1 second stun as well, it's a small thing, but those small things do amount to the bigger picture. And for Rival, that was just being able to catch up.
Splyce able to control the majority of the game, but Team Rival taking the W. Let's take a second look on the desk.
Wow, what a close one, and what a way to end that game out. Really just one fight around the Fire Giant, man, could snatch that one away from Splyce when it felt like they were in control for such a long time towards the end of that game. And for me, it felt like Solar Troll just kind of melted under Panda Cat's damage. What did you see in that last fight, Totally, that let that go so handily in Rival's favor?
It was exactly like you mentioned. Panda Cat got the damage off offensively. In the previous engagement on the defensive side, Panda Cat was getting zoned away by Solar Troll. He was the one getting Eagles rallied and having to back up. But this time, Panda Cat was engaging. He got the damage off. Solar Troll absolutely melted. And then the chase was on. Having that river as well for the movement speed allowed the rest of Rival to catch up to Splyce to play cleanup crew.
And we talked about it. Jormungandr already has so little tools for peel anyway. If your whole team can just ignore the slows, then there's really not much he can do to slow you down from getting in there, aside from some of those knockups. And that felt like part of the problem. To me, it really looked like Splyce was walking a tightrope, even on the fights they were winning anyway, just barely getting those engagements to go the way they needed them to. So it's no surprise it could eventually blow up.
This game was so even finished.
It really was.
Blew my mind, because at first, like, we didn't see First Blood until 12 minutes onto PBM, where there was engagement around that red buff side, and then eventually Rival won a fight around the Fire Giant, which Splyce started in the first place, and then Solar Troll reviving, teleports in, steals that Fire Giant with the Eagles rally. A good job by Aurora, buying time to make sure that Solar Troll would get there in the first place.
Yeah, what a big play. This is what really felt like one of the big turning points, like you highlighted, because Splyce really were ahead, but this is a chance for Rival to come back in and make a push of their own. Instead, it's Splyce that steal that one away in a situation where you thought they'd never be able to get there, and not just with Aurora by himself, but he was alone, he had Solar Troll, and then the game looked in their favor. They were doing such a clean job of disengaging.
Oh, yeah.
That left side Phoenix Siege is really clean as well. But unfortunately, they never created enough space for them to get away.
And I think a lot of it came down to Arco playing the Hachiman, finding the last hits. That range that he has on that first ability gives him so much safety to just sit in that backline and do whatever he wants. This specific fight was a little off because Solar Troll actually jumps in with 10% health. Doesn't really allow much to happen other than PandaCat forced to defensively ultimate, but still, reviving in time, being able to steal away the Fire Giant, he made up for that initial play.
And this was a defense that was really important too, where Arco finds a couple kills, because Splyce really, I thought, could have gotten more. I think this was a 4v3 in their favor, and Arco manages to help them turn this around. That was one of those long-range shots you were pointing out as well, in that final push that really sealed the game for them as well. And you could see it was kind of Aurore's job a lot of the time to try and disrupt him, to knock him up, to keep him displaced, to try and slow him down. But Arco was constantly repositioning to follow up when his team gave him opportunities.
And he didn't care about the Jormungandr at all that last team fight. He knew the priority targets of whoever was beside him. Arkell, such an experienced hunter here, 7-0-6 on the Hachiman. I was a little surprised that it wasn't a ROM, but it worked out at the end of the day. I think the separation that Twig allowed on the Nemesis still gave Arkell the freedom that he really needed. Not too loud and boisterous was PandaCat playing the Hotwap because he was a little preoccupied with Solar Troll's dives, but no one paid any mind to the Hachiman.
And I'm not surprised that the 5 players on Splyce were happy to go late with this game. They often do. But what about this draft? It really felt like the late game was probably going to favor Rival in the end. How did you feel about Splyce's willingness to let the game be so even for so long and go so late?
It definitely felt like Splyce's idea was more of the mid-game focus, having this Uller, the Bologna as well. Nuance kind of late game as well, but when you're dealing with the Nemesis Hobwa, it's a little scary if you're on Splyce's side. I think that their draft was working for them. Like, they got it to 42.5 minutes. They had opportunities to close out the game in terms of getting the Phoenixes and exposing Rival's Titan, but every time they sieged and got a Phoenix, they would lose a 1-for-1, for example, so they had to reset and allowed Rival a little bit of breathing room until they finally made that ultimate play.
The team that had that burst potential where if they needed it, they could win a fight. It's the team with the Hobwa on it. I feel like PandaCat really was the one that made that big play. But totally, I don't know if Splyce really need to go back to the drawing board that much in this next game. Like you said, I think they had a strong composition. I think they had great gameplay. I mean, this was them coming off a month-long break up against a very strong Rival team without even their full squad, and I thought they were about to take this game. I mean, they're right here with everyone else.
If I was to grade Splyce just off of this game, I would give them about an A-.
Yeah, I think so.
Even though it was a loss, it was just a great performance. I think no matter what they do for game number 2, it's probably going to be really different from game number 1.
I expect so too. Picks and Bans now ready for that second game, and I'm hoping that what this really is now Solar Troll can relax. You've sort of broken the seal with this first game. Not to say he didn't look comfortable and relaxed in that first game, but now you come in and it's so built up in your mind playing at this level. Now you can go, okay, that wasn't so bad. I can hang with Fineokay. We really almost won, and it could be a much more realistic thing for them.
And even though he went 2-5, a lot of that was just because of how much pressure he was under in terms of engaging. He had to be that separation distance by using the Eagles rally offensively. And then keep in mind, his very first death in that game was because of a gank from Captain Twig, diving that tier 1 tower for a very long time, by the way, and that allowed the rest of his team to get a Gold Fury. And that was a good look for them, considering that they got the second Gold Fury after the fact. They were able to get that momentum and gave them about a 5,000 to 6,000 gold lead, which eventually Rival caught up after that one awkward Fire Giant fight.
Well, Splyce in the first pick selection this time, it was Rival first pick last time. And again, first pick sort of affords you to ban away stuff that the other team's playing rather than worrying about the meta bans so much. And I think that's why we see this Hobwa get banned away. Not going to let PandaCat have that big burst turnaround potential that saved them last game. Now we're on the Xbalanque, and Rival, y'all got to come across it honestly.
I love the Xbalanque pick. You can really tell Splyce is doing their homework with their picks and bans because they're really doing double throwaway bans with this Hobwa Starcat. They're leaving so much on the table between Naja, Fenrir, the Freya as well. Achilles potentially. But honestly, I kind of prefer Bologna over the Achilles. Even though we saw Fineokay have more player damage at the end of the game, I think utility-wise, there was just more provided for this Bologna pick. But Rival, they still very comfortable with this Greek god.
I think you're right. Unless you're getting the executes in the fights, probably you're getting a little more value from the Bologna. But I think maybe that execute is what's the big difference maker. And now the Chernobog coming out. And this is interesting because Splyce is, yes, his ultimate is really strong in team fights, but even when he's not there, it gives him a way to impact them. Well, Chernobog can kind of match that.
Yes, that's going to be a great rotation. You would like Darkest of Nights, but making your body presence actually felt on that side of the battlefield could go a long way for Rival, and expect Arkle to make a lot of plays there, knowing that he got that pentakill at the last previous Worlds. He's very comfortable on this god.
Well, let's see if they prioritize Moswell's pick early again. Remember, they went for that Nuwa in this exact sort of spot in the draft when they were getting their second and third picks. And it is going to be the Jormungandr and the Awelish. So not prioritizing for Moswell just yet. They're getting Sino comfortable, and still Jormungandr remains flex to me. I'm not 100% sold. This is for Aurora. This could really be going to solo or troll or the support.
Not the highest win rate quite yet in Season 6, but still feeling comfortable enough to pick it up. It's good setup for the Awelish potentially. There's great zoning with that World Serpent being able to get out of danger. I think that it was a great performance by Aurora, but like you mentioned, it's still a flex pick. Wouldn't be surprised if SOT runs this against the Achilles.
He certainly could, and wouldn't be too bad of a matchup for him there. Awelish came in, and we haven't really given enough credit to how well I feel like Sino played this pick. And he was able to get some nice pulls off the knockups from this Jormungandr, maneuver around to these fights as well. Certainly, based off what I saw in Game 1, it makes sense to make sure he's back on a pick like this.
Looking for Rival's next pick, expecting it to be jungle pick, knowing that it's going to be banned away if they don't take whatever Captain Twig wants right here.
Yeah, maybe get a mid lane, I don't know. Maybe you want to leave the Achilles as a flex option. That could certainly be strong too, as Poseidon gets picked up for them. So likely was going into the middle lane. We don't really see Poseidon go anywhere else. But this gives them a nice bit of strong presence, that big burst damage all at once. Maybe not Habois, but still pretty good.
More about the cripple aspect, because if you can land that Whirlpool right under the Awelish, there's no Feather Step available. You can't jump with your Suku, so that's going to be Panicat's idea. A very comfortable pick for him specifically that he's been running in the previous 2 weeks.
And still somewhat can get some value out of those basic attacks as well, so that's something that we know Panicat can do quite well from all his time spent as a hunter, so I like this as a nice sort of middle ground for him. He's got to make sure that he's well-timed on those ultimates, because once you get late and there's relics online, shells, Aegises, the Krakens become a lot less valuable, and it really is going to be mostly about those Whirlpools.
That's true, but if you can force out Aegises, maybe even from Jormungandr, then there's less team-fighting relics available, so never a bad look when you're forcing relics that you're not normally used to seeing.
Well, Rival now ban away the Nuwa, and Splyce take it upon themselves to ban the Nemesis. So as you were worried about, Tully, because Rival didn't prioritize the jungler, possibly Achilles could be for Twig, then some junglers are now getting banned away in the second ban phase. Meanwhile, Rival are telling Moswell, you're going to have to play something else, buddy.
I'm expecting Twig to either go for the Ratatasker or also the Mercury, with some sort of global pressure available, especially knowing that Poseidon can't really get out of danger by himself. He does have mobility steroid on his too, but it's not really enough, so if you can play cleanup crew, wouldn't be a bad look.
Apuash still up. They ban away the Zeus and the Nuwa instead here. So very curious. That's what they prioritized last time in the ban phase, and I guess not worried that he might pick it. I mean, they did ban away some Zeus, another immobile mage, so it's not as if that wouldn't fit into this comp, or at least Rival are certainly worried it could be strong.
And honestly, if they wanted Apuash, Splyce could have probably picked it before secondary ban phase.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why Rival like, you know what, we would rather deal with a Apuash than a Zeus or a Nuwa. Speaking of the Nuwa, I think that Moswell definitely ultied really early in the very last team fight.
A little too soon.
And global pressure is the name of the game in Season 6.
Well, Mercury coming through for Rival, just as you were predicting. Not the Rat this time, but can certainly still match that. And it's Zhang Kui, so Rival right to not worry about the Apuash, but it's going to be this tanky mid laner who can certainly have a big presence in the middle of the fight. And a tier coming out.
I love it.
A solo or troll special for the long, or the short lane rather. Tier coming out, man. This is interesting. But into the Poseidon, that could be tough.
It is, but the thing is, the way he's going to play it is with a blink. He's going to try to blink and use that Fearless to be able to force the purification beats very early. But Even a second cripple wouldn't hurt, though.
Not at all. This is starting to get scary from Rival because now they have a ton of control. You got to worry, like you said, about the Whirlpool, Mercury, Sonic Booms ripping through fights, the Ares ultimate as well. I mean, Splyce have to make sure they're careful. They've got some CC immunity here and there in their kits, though. It's not the worst situation for them, but still, with this much, they got to keep their eyes open.
That's true. Jormungandr is going to be very vulnerable, I think, for all the Ares damage. You know, being the biggest god in SMITE also has its disadvantages, being able to have a bigger hitbox to land some of these chains.
I think that it absolutely does. A lot of pressure now for me going to be on to Solo or Troll to deliver on this pick because we do not see a lot of tier. And this is him very much going back to comfort to try and make this play happen totally. So let's go ahead and get ready to get into the action. Splyce against Rival, game number 2. They already looked good. Can they do it again? Well, the casters can tell you.
Taking a look at Splyce in game number 1, I think it was clear that they had ran the game and then Rival kind of end things off with their own cap. So that's why I like that Splyce are kind of sticking to their guns and maintaining their picks here with the Jormungandr and the Uwheelish combo.
I think if anything, this composition might have even been made better from Splyce since they got the Xbalanque in game 2 here. That's going to pose a whole new series of issues, I think, for Rival as far as the collapse is concerned. They've got Pandacan on the Poseidon now instead of the Habwa, but it'll still pose a lot of issues, I think, for somebody like Captain Twig, who's kind of relying on vision to ensure that those Sonic Booms are going to be impactful.
Captain Twig has looked really good on Mercury in the past, and I really enjoy Captain Twig when he plays a carry like this because Twig generally brings a utility sort of mindset to the game, and with that in mind, when you're looking at a character like Mercury, for example, there is a lot of utility that sometimes goes overlooked. So I like to see his approach kind of work out, frequently using the special delivery to help his teammates out, as well as, of course, just critting people in the face.
What I really want to see, though, is what happens from this solo lane. I don't necessarily expect Fineokay or Solo or Troll to find a solo kill, but the Ares against the tier is definitely not going to be an easy one for Solo or Troll to resolve. And in fact, Polar Bear Mike already trying to show that this solo lane tier exactly why you don't want to be tier into the Ares.
Exactly, yeah. Solo or Troll gonna have some issues during the team fight portion, or maybe the laning portion if PBM just stays here the whole time. That could be interesting. Chernobog by himself, Arkle just hanging. And because of that, Splyce are able to push up in this duo lane and not really look for the invade. You see Team Rival has already successfully taken the red buff, so Splyce will have to just take the enemy purple and not be able to go all the way in. SOT here in the 1v2 on the solo lane.
Sino, though, and Moswa could arrive on Captain Twig in time, but Captain Twig just hitting level 2 there, so a successful red buff invade for Rival. And kind of surprising as well that Sino didn't look for any blue buff invades against Rival, knowing that Captain Twig was in mid.
For sure, definitely something worth looking at. I'm trying to understand where Sino might be going after that, because if he's not looking for the invade, then he's looking for something else. I guess that just might be the difference with the invade change as far as the experience and the gold return for killing creatures on your side of the map versus the opponents.
PBM just now hitting level 2, by the way, a little bit late, but he is a Guardian, and Ares, you're mostly just relying on the cripple effect anyway. But Arkill's kind of just been chilling in dual lane, biding his time, waiting for PBM to come and rejoin him. Aurora and Cyclone's been doing what they can to apply some pressure, but there's only so far that a Xbalanque and a Jormungandr can afford to go.
Well, Jorm's going to knock up, and Captain Twig comes from around the corner, looking for the dash, and he won't find it. Big damage out of Aurora. The dash forward from Cyclone spin, and the spin to win will get the kill. First blood for Splyce. PBM steps a little too far in range.
It's the poison darts.
Yep.
Everybody forgets just how much damage the poison darts combined alongside of the branching bullet can actually be. But Cyclone, not going to have any worries whatsoever. You take what you can get when you're a hunter, and if it's a Xbalanque first blood, no one's complaining.
And don't forget, I mean, you mentioned the poison darts, that Jaguar, the rising Jaguar, as Hindu would say. Cyclone gets extra damage. Players that are poisoned, so the final hit goes to the dash.
And the worst part for Mike, too, is that he was the last one to get hit by the Rising Jaguar. It's like when you know you're dead and there's nothing you can do about it. Speaking of which, Cyclone Spin going to use those Purification Beads preemptively, chain off the mark for PBM, but Cyclone still not willing to take any chances.
Just got to be careful here. Is Captain Twig going to wrap around and use this opportunity to look for an invade? Sino's on the back camp. Captain Twig on the red buff. Mozzie walking around, but the red buff already dead. Nice play there from Captain Twig. Just sees a very tiny opening and runs right on through it.
I'm assuming that Sino just didn't have the timer for him to not immediately drop the back harpies and look to challenge Captain Twig, because losing that red buff 2 times in a row can definitely start to add up now for Moswell. And that's who I think is getting punished here. Not necessarily Sino, because he'll still be able to fall back to his back harpies. He's also been pretty efficient at just soaking waves in general from mid, but Moswell, having lost out on that experience, is going to give him a slight deficit to Fineokay.
The Bancroft is finished, though, for the mid lane, Zhang Kui. So a tanky offering, somewhat, in the just the passive, the protections as far as what Zhang brings. And then that Bancroft that exorcism will become very scary. The turnaround is very big for Zhang there. The healing and the damage dealt, etc.
Not a lot to be said, though. Game 2 kind of following a similar pattern, I think, to game number 1 here, where both of these teams don't really seem all that interested in overextensions.
Right.
They're mostly, well, it's mostly just Splyce trying to be aggressive when they can, but also being incredibly respectful, I think, towards a rival and their capability, I think, to just turn the tables if Splyce aren't careful or clean on some of these gank attempts. But I think it's really just how quiet the solo lane has been, because Fineokay has kind of demanded every team's attention towards solo up into this set, where he just doesn't really seem to be finding a whole lot of aggressive moments here up against Solo Patrol.
Which is interesting. I mean, Solo Patrol is the minor league level substitute here for Splyce. Just very interesting. Now, maybe Solo Patrol is a lot better than his current situation would allow you to think, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying that he is, any sort of level. It's just very interesting that the only one that seems to have been able to wrestle with Fineokay is the minor league call-up. That's certainly an interesting story to take note of.
Well, we talked about it a little bit on Esports Weekly, and Solo Patrol, the one thing that I think has always kind of distinguished him in my eyes from other solo laners is that he just reminds me a lot of like Benji in the sort, where he just looks for those lane bully opportunities. Tyr is definitely part of that god pool in my eyes, where you want to play this lane aggressively. You want to force Fineokay to have to either stalemate or lose minions to the tower. And the fact that Solo Patrol has been able to hold his own this well for Splyce, it's almost like Divios isn't even missing.
Maybe. Divios has a very interesting play style where I think, honestly, exactly what Solo Patrol did in game number 1, perhaps we're understanding why Splyce looked for Solo Patrol specifically. Captain Twig going to look for Sino, but ultimately miss. Here comes the worm, knocking up Panicat. Beads are good. Sino won't get the grab, but Moswell will have the dot damage. Meanwhile, Fearless, power cleave, feather step. Sino puts down Polar Bear Mike. A near perfect combination. SOT jumps over the wall. Fearless is somebody into the boards, and then just like the lightning, gets knocked the hell out. Great job. 3 kills for Splyce. Shout out to Cooper.
That moonlit charge was nasty, by the way, from Sino. Captain Twig cuts the Sonic Boom too far over. Sino immediately hits him with a 3 and just that force out of Twig's beads, and then Panicat doesn't even know what's happening next because there's a Darkest Night surrounding him, so he has to use his beads at the same exact time, and it's just incredible that Splyce were able to find anything through that.
That was absolutely, that was a great play. Splyce just combined perfectly. By the way, Cooper has walked past the studio now twice, and I'm definitely afraid for my life at the moment. Splyce want to do that 20 times. The rotation out of Solo Patrol was near perfect. Sano and Cyclone and Aurora just come through, and there's so much going on. I love that just so much going on. The lights are off. There's a giant worm coming out from underneath the ground. You're getting pulled when you jump. You're getting shoved into the wall. Just, oh man, so many variables. How do you control it?
I think the worst part out of all of that, though, is probably for Mike. When you're getting Fearless as Ares by the tier, what's supposed to be the counter pick, but Mike just never even having that opportunity. It was a really well-placed Fearless from Solo Patrol.
Yeah, really, really well done. 2 assists there for the single rotation. Not only does he get the assists, he gets the Totem of Coup for the first time. And the lane looking pretty good. Cooper's back a 3rd time. Now he's pointing at his lightning hat. And now I think he's threatening me.
Well, Polymer Mike trying to threaten Solo Retrol. Not trying to let this tier runaway train, so to say, in the solo lane, because those are the type of small rotations that could eventually amount to bigger leads. Fineokay right now not going to really feel any sort of repercussions from Solo Retrol being rotated in, but the map pressure definitely shifted in that moment over to Splyce, and that's why now we see Splyce pushing in a little bit more confidently against Rival, because that first exchange in a game is your damage check.
Yeah, you want to test just exactly how hot the water is. And Splyce, well, the water is certainly rising right now. Looking at that tier pick is certainly interesting because, like you said, I mean, this really can go out of hand. And if you want some examples, in the minor league, Julio has been known to play some tier and has had a game where it has spiraled out of control in his favor for sure. So Team Rival will have to be aware of SOT's ability to go ahead and do that, and I think they've correctly kept him at bay. Aurora going to use the ultimate to ensure the red buff invade. I'm not sure about all this follow-up, but if you get a knock-up, you get a pull. Captain Twig's going to come in to help, but he gets exploded. The AoE damage from the Feather Step, and Cyclone Spin can't find it, so Sino rolls, trips. Feather Step one more time, trying to avoid. Fineokay puts Team Rival on the board, punishes the aggressive jungler, and Cyclone near to fall, will as well. Double kill for the solo lane rotation. Fineokay lining it up, going for kill number 4. He has a quadra kill, almost accidentally. Splyce get 3, but Fineokay picks up 4 just like that. Okay, Fineokay. That's an answer.
That's a save, by the way, for Rival, because that whole engagement screamed Splyce gonna pull out ahead, and then suddenly Fineokay's here to just collect all of the pieces.
Everyone!
One fatal strike, that's all it takes. You get him into the execute range, and that's exactly why Fineokay wanted this Achilles to begin with. Splyce just unable to disengage at their own pace because of the fact that this Achilles was just slowing them down in the process. So Aurora ends up getting poked out, trying to tank the shots for Cyclone and Boswell, and well, what should have been, I think, a heads-up moment for Splyce has now been turned back into Rival's favor because that Gold Fury just evens up the game one more time.
That was a Splyce tier 1 tower, a Gold Fury, and a strippage of probably the solo tower when Solo Retrol goes back. Instead, Fineokay wills his team into position, kills 4, and in fact doesn't just clean up and get a stop. They go the step further, get the stuff after the stuff, and get the Gold Fury. Fineokay, listen, we've spoke very highly of him, and it's been kind of memed to the point that Fineokay, you know, the next thing since sliced bread. Look at what he does.
Look at what Achilles does. I think that's the bigger picture to keep in mind if you're Splyce, and you can't just take for granted that because Sino gets a triple kill immediately that there isn't going to be any sort of punish after the fact. That did feel really slow from Rival, but PBM trying to get Sino one more time. Sonic Boom's going to be good, and the CC chain is just way too much for Sino to handle.
Fineokay gets another one, 500 for the solo laner out of Florida. Team Rival looking real happy with their solo lane choice right now. Polar Bear Mike was talking about it before the season began. He said, listen, everybody's going to see that Fineokay is the best player. Captain Twig was talking about it. The best player in the league. And we're like, I mean, yeah, he looked good last year. He's strong. Cool, no problem. Listen, Taco, plays like this over and over again. The Achilles is a great selection. But, I mean, we saw it on the Circuit. We saw it on the Hell. Now we're seeing it on a traditional solo laner like the Achilles. I mean, I don't know. I'm gushing about this man, but this is the type of gameplay that makes headlines.
It definitely is. Solo Retrol is certainly having, or excuse me, Fineokay is certainly having a game for himself, but this is only the start. It also matters how you plan on finishing this match because keep in mind, game number 1, it was all Splyce, and then at the very last second, Rival just managed to Houdini the game back into their favor.
That's certainly something that Team Rival was able to do in game number 1. Now looking to turn things around and kind of drive the victory themselves. A very small lead of 1,000 for Team Rival.
I think Splyce just need to be more careful about how they intend to disengage. That was, I think, the first time that we really saw them kind of lollygagging away from that fight, because Cyclone and Sino, for what it's worth, I think got a little bit baited into thinking that they could find more without realizing that that big rotation was coming yet from Fineokay. But it's mostly Solo Troll who's having to face the punishment now of Fineokay getting those 4 kills. Because of no fault of his own, he's now stuck in a lane that Fineokay has all the power to try and control.
Tier 1 goes down. Captain Twig here to help out. A blink will get Solo Troll out of trouble. Here comes the rotation from Splyce, as Twig has been here for a moment now. Fineokay safely up the lane, and that should be a good disengage. And it will be. Splyce unable to answer back.
Splyce don't want to dive that deep just yet. Even without Gold Fury being on the map, Splyce still kind of just understanding, if we don't kill this Achilles right away, if we're not certain that he's going to drop dead when we go on him, the punish from Rival could yet again be another problematic factor.
Here's a big ultimate from Aurora. Looking for a knockup for Sino to capitalize off of. Not going to find it, so the defensive ult this time around. You get 3 charges of that giant jump, so Aurora tries to make it happen with 2 and then uses the 3rd to get on out of there. Splyce still can't find it.
Solo Troll, though, being poked out pretty heavily now by Fineokay, who is very much in clear command of this solo lane right now. It's only a matter of time, too, I think, before he starts looking for more rotations to try and influence the spreading of this map from Splyce. Because Duoside has still maintained most of its composure. I don't think there's been a whole lot of action taking place between Cyclone and Arkill since Fineokay came through and kind of just reminded Splyce, hey, I'm still around.
Yeah, it's been a little bit rough there. Still a 2-level lead, a real 2-level lead between these solo laners, which is very scary.
Honestly, though, I want to see Fineokay look for the rotations as soon as his Oni Fury comes up. And that's probably already the intent, because he is currently standing at Rival's red buff. As soon as the Oni Fury started to spawn, he's already making his way back to base. And now we'll really get some insight as to how Splyce intend on toggling this fed Achilles.
That's what we mean by map presence, by the way, right? Is Fineokay able to get that tier 1 tower? This is the direct result of that. Is Fineokay being able to rotate a little bit more freely. Polar Bear might get aggressed on by Sino, but I don't know if I like that, Taco. That ultimate on the Guardian not resulting in a kill. Now you don't have that tool, and that's what Splyce was mainly looking for. The Yorm into the Wheelish.
Well, look at all the slows as well from the rest of Rival. It almost feels like now they just want to make Fineokay that ultimatum cleanup factor. You got a Frostbound Hammer onto Captain Twig. This is nothing out of the ordinary either. If you know Twig and his Mercury play, this is definitely a more favorable build for him. And Panicat as well, with that early gem of Isolation Rush. He's going to get plenty of damage off of the Spear of Magus alone, and so having the capability now to kind of spam that Whirlpool cooldown, just slow Splyce in the process. Sino and Solar Troll, I think, are definitely going to start to suffer.
I like this build for sure. Oni Fury here. Fineokay gonna get pushed by Solo Troll. Sign him up top, gets 1. Panicat and Aurora both gonna sit down. 4 versus 4. Over the wall comes Solo Troll. Fineokay's in trouble. Moswall carded up. No help from the jungler as the beads are good. One more shot will do it. Moswall getting controlled. Does find the basic. Now the knockup onto Captain Twig. Sino gets the ultimate. The Made You Look won't kill Mozzie. And now everybody looking up here. Polar Bear Mike goes down. 10 kills for Splyce. I don't know if they're healthy enough for this, Taco.
Cyclone trying to take the first brunt of the damage with Solar Troll. He does have the Devil Gloves and the Aussie, so decent amount of sustain coming the way of Cyclone Spin. But gotta watch out, Captain Twig still local and healthy enough to offer a contest.
Solar Troll still here, and Moswell's gonna show up. Captain Twig and Arkle are both half HP. The Oni Fury is being aggressed on. There's big damage from the Hunter, but there's the power cleave, and Splyce take the Gold Fury. Now they're gonna look for Arkle. Arkle runs to the left, Sino runs to the right, and he disengages. Fine. Splyce get the objective at 18 minutes.
But the way Splyce were able to split that team fight to begin with, Aurora and Sino deep as all hell into the back line of Rival, and Fineokay is just in no man's land all by himself. You can be a level 17 Achilles all day long, but it won't matter if you're trying to 4v1 against the entirety of Splyce. That's probably not going to work out for you.
I think that was we were talking about damage checks before. I think that was the overestimation of the damage. Fineokay hasn't been in a team fight since he got those 4 executes, right? You wind up with a quadra kill, you're 2 levels above the enemy solo laner, and you're like, okay, I can take on the world. Unfortunately, the world can take on you. Fineokay finds his first death, and now Solo Troll is half a level down.
Now, I almost don't blame Fineokay because score lines can definitely be deceiving.
Yeah.
And when you already have the Onis finished off and all these other itemization tools at your disposal as Arkle, without those BET is toast for Sino. Won't even get a chance to go into darkness. Sino just punishing this Chernobog for showing face.
What you were saying about the slash line deception, for sure. Fineokay, yeah, you know, let us lead play him. Not the greatest look here for the solo laner, the celebrated solo laner. Aurora in the ultimate, largely defensive, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Team Rival just coalesced around the Guardian a little bit too much, but Fineokay with a misstep here. We'll see if Splyce are gonna be able to kind of deal with what he's kind of set them up for. Sino looking for the knockup on Captain Twig, won't find it. Now Twiggy here. So is Cyclone Spin. The tier 1 tower won't be.
But Arkle's about to respawn, so Sino knows better than to try and tangle with Captain Twig under these circumstances. It's only a matter of time before Living Nightmare comes out onto the playing field, and you don't want to be in a Wheelish that's expended all of your cooldowns to try and trade poke with a level 15 Mercury. Sino's got the current experience lead. He should just do everything in his power to try and hold on to that. He's had a really strong showing for himself yet again on this Wheelish for this early to mid-game portion. Except this time around, I think Rival might have some problems of their own when it comes down to PBM being on the Ares.
Yeah, the Ares certainly, you were mentioning the combination on, or excuse me, the interaction with Tyr and his ability to move out. Sino can't feather step if he's chained up. A number of options negated through correct use of the Ares selection. So PBM 0-4-1, unfortunately not the most successful time so far, but his team down 4,000 gold, and the enemy gonna look for the Fire Giant. Half HP already. Splyce has done the work. Captain Twig used the ult and finds the beads of Sino.
Into darkness is Arkle, but the Kraken comes
Kraken's
out,
good.
landing on the Moswell and Cyclone Spin, but Moswell's just pushing forward now. Pandacat's going to be the one to end up spilling first, courtesy of Sino, and Arkle doing what he can, but Aurora is a worm. He's just going to go straight into the ground.
Knockups on 2, now coming back to the safety of his own team. Fineokay and Captain Twig pushing up and out. Fineokay in the mid lane, Captain Twig still here by the buff, and Splyce are not willing to full commit, but that said, their jungle and Solo are in trouble. Solo or Troll doesn't have the ultimate. He's going to get knocked up, pushed around, separated from his team. Sino shows face, might have died because of it, but just doesn't. And SOT punished.
That felt like the rookie mistake
That was
from Solo or Troll.
Yeah,
Sino was running because he knew what was about to happen, but Solo or Troll, I think, really wanted that blue buff, and unfortunately ends up trading his life out for it. And now Pandacat respawning, so this could be problematic for Splyce here, having to wait another 25 seconds or so for Solo or Troll to be back up and running. On the bright side, though, he does have that teleport available and could choose to upgrade it if he has that 500 gold, so that way he'd be able to teleport to a ward if necessary.
What we see when we talk about the difference between SPL level play and all of the other levels is windows of opportunity. One, they get smaller, and 2, you can do more in those smaller windows, as backwards as that sounds. And so I think Solo or Troll looks at that blue buff and maybe it's something he gets away with at a lower level of play.
That's something you get away with in ranked.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Every single time an Ares is running at you, and you're just like, it's just an Ares.
Yeah.
I'm tier, I'm
pick up
tanky,
speed.
I'm fine. And then you're not.
Yeah, real big trouble when all 5 members are at this level. Arkle comes literally from out of play to join the team fight. Team Rival gonna block off Fineokay's escape. Feather Step checks the card. And one goes down, Aurora gets krakened. That's a 1-for-1, but a Guardian for a solo later. Splyce come out on top there.
Aurora unable to make it into that World Worm ultimate in time. But the Gold Fury's still on the board. Both of these teams have just been fighting near this Fire Giant pit for so long. I think they forgot about this one having respawn. Solar Patrol going to be the first one to venture over into the objective, but this is tough. Not sure that this is a situation you really want to dive into, but it's a steal from Solar Patrol.
He gets it! SOT just hits him with the power cleave. Swag flips over the top. Fearless in a feather step. FNF means fantastic. And Sino gets the last hit. Solo Troll makes the rookie mistake on the right side, and not 2 minutes later, snatches the objective for his team.
Instant redemption for Solo Troll. And it's not even just that. The kill onto Polar Bear Mike after the fact, this is a power play moment for Splyce, and they are trying to capitalize on it. Captain Twig deep in the backline, same for Fineokay. Board is good for the teleport, but Rival might have actually walked themselves into their own sort of disaster.
I think it was a good play by Rival. They stopped the Fire Giant by splitting the team fight. Not only do they stop the Fire Giant, but by splitting the team fight, they actually prevent anybody from dying, so the subsequent Fire Giant's looking like a tall task as well. Fineokay has just been zoning 3 people because he'll be able to walk away from it. An oddball Stone of Gaia selection, and I love it. Rarely do we see the Stone of Gaia picked up anymore. It's a ton of health and a ton of HP 5, but look at that passive. Knockups are going to give you 15% of your max HP, and this whole Splyce thing has been Aurora or Sino knocks up into a pull. Guess what? Fearless is also a knockup. I love this itemization coming out from Fine.
I think we're also about to see the same sort of route build pathway for Polar Bear Mike.
Yeah.
Because he's already started off into what could be another Stone of Gaia. And it'd be a smart decision, I think, for Rival's front line, because they have been the focal point for a lot of these Splyce engagements, whether it's Fineokay or Polar Bear Mike. Either or is usually getting blown up right at the very start and then being forced into an awkward sort of disengage. But now, since Fineokay, I think, is going to have a little bit of a better time on that survivability aspect, it might be time for Splyce to maybe take a gander over towards some anti-heal.
Might be worth the look. Aurora getting chained up, but Splyce don't seem to mind. Aurora underground, and look at that. Look at that pressure. Aurora goes underground and doesn't even need to move, and Rival have to leave, just leave the area.
Well, Pyromancer is going to go down in Splyce's favor. Aurora, though, got to be careful. Some decent chain damage coming out now from Polar Bear Mike. Captain Twig also trying to find that sideline cut, I think, of the Sonic Boom to truly separate the team fight. But Sino knows Pyromancer's down. There's really nothing left for Splyce to try and grab here. So I think he just ran up towards Rival's jungle to try and get a pincer maneuver around behind them. All the Splyce still grouped up and not really willing to budge.
Rival down 5K, have control of the Fire Giant pit. I think it would be presumptuous to go for it right now, especially down 5K, but they do have the positioning. Splyce has been pushed out largely because Sino was by himself in the mid lane, but now a return to the pseudo lane phase, I guess.
I also think that Splyce are trying to buy their time until Cyclone Spin's Aegis is back up and running. Without that Aegis, I don't think that Splyce truly feel comfortable looking for any sort of engagement between themselves and Rival.
Accurate.
And it's for good reason. Cyclone Spin has been a large part of Splyce's damage so far. Even looking at the player damage charts right now, it is Sino and Cyclone leading the way. Meanwhile, you've got Arcul and Fineokay kind of matching the same pace, but Fineokay definitely in a league all his own with that 20K representing.
Yeah, a quadra kill will do that for you. With or without an execute. You're certainly
But it wasn't
putting
even that,
damage.
technically the quadra kill wasn't that much damage because it was 4 last hits.
But see, that's the thing, is that some of those characters he brought down to execute threshold. It was some damage. It was some damage.
I think it was mostly just him cleaning up shop.
It was the first two for sure. I think I'm sure we have a replay of it, so we'll get a chance to reflect later.
Well, Splyce, Moswell and Cyclone had already been poked out by the time Fineokay showed up. And the same case for Aurora. Aurora just kept tanking up little bits of damage over time, trying to peel for his carry. So Fineokay, I mean, he did an excellent job looking for the punish there.
But perhaps not 5,000 damage.
But it wasn't 5,000 worth of it. No, I'd definitely would not say that it was that intense.
I feel that. 5,000 player damage is a lot of slapboxing in the solo mode. Sino dodges the chains. Maybe Polar Bear Mike misses. Glass half full, glass half empty. The team fight, very full. Arkle gonna go to the sky, cracking on the left-hand side. Fineokay in trouble. Sino jumps forward, looking for a hit, and finds it. Meanwhile, Aurora escapes. The left side fight. Safe and sound, trying to body block Polar Bear Mike. Flames aren't good. Sino gets down with the Panda Cat up top. Mid laner goes down. It's a 5-on-2. Polar Bear Mike gets exercised, and he's going to exercise his right to sit down on the bench. 3 players dead for Rival. Means Splyce will likely look for the FG, but first, the moment of Captain Twig.
The only thing I'm certain of right now, F-Dot, is win or lose, I am not sure that Rival should allow this Jormungandr pick to go through again for Aurora, because in both games 1 and 2, he has had such an impact at splitting open the team fights and forcing all of the carries from Rival to try and cater to Panda Cat instead. Aurora has just been relentless with looking for Panda Cat over and over again, to the point now where I don't even think that Panda Cat has been near any of these last few fights. It's just been Fineokay or Polar Bear Mike trying to deal with the entirety of Splyce. Meanwhile, Aurora's able to zone away 3 different carries, and that's just too much of an impact for one Guardian to have.
If I'm Panda Cat, I'm asking for Thoth. I want a long-range character that I can sit in Arizona and just launch artillery from. I don't want that snake anywhere near me if I'm Panda Cat, because that has been really rough. At first, I thought it was just the fact that Hebo is very difficult to get in. Talking to people during the break, like, it just looked like Hebo was afraid to go in. And well, the problem is that Splyce made him afraid for good reason. Great play coming out from Aurora. The Invisible Guardian, what do you do? What do you do? Anybody know where Aurora is? Is he around the corner? Oh, he's under our tower already, pushing forward. SOT tanking it up.
Arkle gonna take into the sky with that Living Nightmare.
Nice.
Captain Twig with a really nice Sonic Boom straight into the heart of the fight, but it's the Kraken after the fact, yet no one's down just yet. Sino gonna be the first to fall, but the Phoenix is gone and all of Rival on the retreat.
Splyce lose their jungler, but they get what they came for. A very similar feeling to game number 1. Lose a jungle, get a Phoenix, everybody happy. The retreat's good. Cyclone, the rest of his squad up 8,000 gold. Fineokay with a double stun. Team Rival looking to find the continuation of the team fight. Cyclone spin on the Aegis, now surrounding Aurora. Fineokay picks up 1, and the fight is on.
But Cyclone Spin's gonna get caught into that special delivery right into the whirlpool of death. Arkle with another kill, 3 so far for this Chernobog, and Moswell looking to be next to fall.
Couldn't find the stun. He'll get shredded. And Fineokay picks that one up. Won't be the same outcome as game number 1. It's not late enough. You can see Sino coming up in 5. So it won't be an all-out walk to the Titan. But Team Rival, we saw this episode last time. They get another late game team fight.
A little bit of deja vu.
Yeah, deja vu all
Splyce.
over again,
But
for sure.
I think that those are the sort of instances that just poke a steady reminder into the back of Splyce's minds where, hey guys, we've been here one time before already. We've got to clear these Phoenixes faster. And
Absolutely.
I think that's really all it comes down to. Aurora has done a great job, I think, at forcing Panda Cat away from the initial defense, and that's been a large part of the reason why Splyce are able to continuously siege these Phoenixes out of Rival, but they've just got to be careful about what happens when even one member falls, because it's a 5-man effort right now from Splyce. Every single one of their team fights that have been successful, it's because all 5 of their members have managed to survive. But if Sino falls, they lose a lot of damage.
Sino's one of the main outputs. We were talking about his ability to set players up last time and not really wind up with those last hits. Now he's getting them. But the power, man. Last time I highlighted the numbers on Bologna, the numbers on the Moonlight Surge after the pull, you're talking about 70% attack speed, an absurd amount of power as well on that ultimate coming out from Oelish. It's very, very nuts. And everybody just looks for the gravity surge, the pull out of the air, but she's also going to hit you for a zillion after the fact.
You just can't get caught for a single second against this rival comp because there's so many slow variables that could come into effect. The instant that you get hit by one of them, rival, it's just a smothering. I mean, they just don't let up once they catch somebody in their web.
Are you upset about the lack of winged blade?
Not really, because if I'm Splyce, I don't think that they can really afford to throw wing blades onto every single one of their characters.
Right.
I think that Mad Eyes is probably a better bet for Sino because it prevents Ares from being as effective, I think. Polar Bear Mike has probably struggled the most throughout this match. He had some, promising showings at the very start of this game when Ares is, in his peak performance period. But
for sure.
As the game draws later and later, it's going to start to feel more and more problematic, I think, for PBM to find his way or to just survive through that initial no escape. And he was dying in the process of a no escape on that right side Phoenix.
Yeah.
And it's one thing for Splyce to invest all of their cooldowns into killing PBM. I think the Stone of Gaia has definitely been a huge beneficial asset to keeping this Ares alive right away.
For sure.
But once those 3K pots potentially start to come into effect, even just the standard red pot, and the 6 item possibilities, I mean, Cyclone Spin could even opt for more crit, possibly even a Wind Demon or a Poison Star, return the favor with some slows of his own.
An interesting choice here, as far as itemization is concerned, is Sino's Shifter's Shield. Ton of power. You're getting about 70 power from this item when you're healthy. And then beneath that, a little bit less, but you get a ton of protections. It's kind of like Sun Wukong passive on a stick, but very rarely purchased, Taco.
It is a rather expensive item, I think, for what it can offer, but seeing it here on Sino's current build, it does make a decent amount of sense because everything that Sino is doing is going to be lined up with either Solo Patrol or Aurora. So the Runeforge Hammer giving him already that additional 15% of bonus power whenever he's looking to be aggressive. It's something that Rival just are wary of.
Whirlpool down by Team Rival. Aurora looking for the pop around the corner. Won't find it. Polar Bear Mike can't find the chains either. The World Worm wiggling around. No big deal there for Aurora.
But he pulls the Mad Guy's Cloak from Polar Bear Mike.
Yep.
And one sometimes can be all it takes. Looking again for Fineokay. Fineokay has no idea. He's going to lose his Mad Guy's Cloak proc. And now Aurora, I think, ready to go in.
Meanwhile, so is Sino. Fire Giant's woken up as well. Double knockup here for the World Worm ultimate. Kraken already used. Arkel's dead, and the fight hardly has begun. Sino on the good side. Captain Twig trying to escape via the right side exit. But the double kill for the jungler off screen already a big deal. Arkel and Fineokay sitting down.
Aurora gonna toss out that horrific emblem just for good measure. Should only be a matter of time now. PBM trying to do what he can, but it's one Ares versus the world of Splyce. And with 3 members dead from Team Rival, this is Splyce's opening to just look for that right side Phoenix immediately. No Kraken available for Panicat, no Sonic Boom for Captain Twig. This defense is gonna be rough if it even happens.
No Fire Giant attempt either. Splyce are looking for the Phoenix. Are they looking for the Titan after that? We'll see how long it takes the bird. With 25 seconds on Fineokay, it'll be a short amount of time if that's what Splyce want to do. They're going to look for it here, Taco, but again, 18 seconds on the solo lane. Achilles, the damage already down to 90%. Team Rival here and trying to play D, but just not enough. We're going to be tied up at 1 as we head into game number 3.
And it's incredible how these teams can know off of 2 or 3 picks alone what their potential push power is going to be looking like. And because that Phoenix had already been sieged one time before, that's where those 3 deaths come back to haunt Rival. Just too long on those respawn timers. Archeol only had about 3 seconds or so left by the time the Titan was falling there. So a fairly quick counter collapse. And Rival are sent right back to the drawing board.
That's the type of game that Splyce wanted game number 1 to be like. Rival able to respond nicely in game 1. This time, Aurora didn't even give him the chance. That's the type of excitement we're used to seeing out of the support, and he's ready for game 3.
I'm just calling it now. I would be surprised if Rival allow Aurora to get that Jormungandr one more time. And it's not even necessarily a guaranteed pick for Aurora. I mean, I wouldn't put it past Solo or Troll of having learned the god for at least well enough, because if he's going to be subbing for Splyce, then you have to assume that whatever scrim Splyce were able to snag up with their solo laner. So maybe Solo or Troll, even proficient in the worm himself.
He definitely is. He himself streams on some platforms. You can check him out. So we've seen that, you know, kind of on his own solo and ranked side of things. So certainly in the arsenal for SOT. If you ask me, I don't want to see anybody across the way. That's a banning. Absolutely. Let's take a look at what the desk has to say about game number 2.
Splyce are looking good, man. I think they even have a case for being up 2-0 in this set,
Seriously.
to be honest about it. So very glad to see that our world champs are certainly still looking strong. Solar or Troll having a big impact. I love Mazel on the Zhang Kui, but I feel like we have to start talking about Aurora on this Jormungandr. You heard them in the post game. It's so strong.
He's consistently zoning 2 or 3 members in these jungle fights, which is allowing Splyce the freedom to get these objectives, the Fire Giant specifically. They just need to clean up their Phoenix engages, because every time between game 1 and 2, even though they're getting the bird, they're losing somebody in response. The first time it was Sino, and then the chase down happens. Rival chase out Splyce, get 3 additional kills. I thought from there maybe they lose a Phoenix on their own right, but then instead they go for the Gold Fury. So as long as Splyce cannot lose anybody during these Phoenix sieges, it could be a lot cleaner out of them. But Rival are not an easy opponent to make that happen.
Not at all, and I think that you even saw it in that game, right? At one point, Fineokay had felt like put his chakra into the game or something like that. It just was like, we're going to win. He got that quadra kill in the Achilles in the middle lane. That was so insane, and even that wasn't enough, even though I think it did buy him a lot of time.
That's right. Sino made a play initially where I believe he got a triple kill, and then Fineokay came in from the solo lane and made this hottest rotation, getting a quadra kill. I mean, how can you say anything about him when he's so jacked? He wears the freshest clothes. He goes to the chillest restaurants. He hangs out with the coolest dudes and the hottest girls.
Fineokay doing it all for this team, as he makes some nice plays in the middle lane, and it still wasn't enough for Rival to be able to grab this victory. And I think I think it is a lot of Polar Bear, rather Aurora and the Jormungandr, but also Sino on this Awilish. Clearly in both games felt very comfortable on it. The synergy between the Awilish and the Jormungandr is very clear, and Sino was able to get it. A lot of the damage coming from Oswald, yes, to support him, but he was isolating targets, man, and just bringing them down.
That's true. That triple kill that he got before the quadra kill was very important, and that's what kind of set it up, where Sino was really feeling himself, making that dive under the tier 1 tower. A very nice, fantastic kill, but that kind of opened the door for Fineokay. But it's not only Sino for Splyce specifically, it's also Solo or Troll.
Yeah, let's see it.
He has some great highlight plays like this, where he just walks up, straight up power cleaves it. Not enough burst damage that was just coordinated from Rival. Panicat actually didn't have much mana to play with after the fact, Sino getting a pick. But despite all the good plays that SOT has, he also kind of fumbles sometimes, because 2 minutes before that, he was a little out of position around his own blue buff, where he tried to make sure that that wasn't going to get stolen away. He gets crippled to high heaven between both Poseidon and Ares, not really respecting that crowd control.
And that was his only death, but you're correct. It was an unnecessary one, I think.
Yes.
Right. So really, Solar Troll could have come through this deathless, I think, had that been cleaned up a little bit. But so far, I think it's hard to have expected more out of this guy stepping into such a difficult task, and so far he's really risen to the occasion. And you saw what it meant to Aurora in that clip afterwards. Clearly was very excited and knows that this is what his team is capable of, knows that this is a strong team, even if they're playing a little bit less than at their maximum. And they've been, I mean, I don't know how to express it more. They've been itching to get in here and play, man. He's been restless. He's been tired of waiting, tired of sitting around. This is what they've been wanting to show us.
I mean, they've been here for, what, 4 months
Since
or something
January,
like that?
I think,
yeah, they've been here for quite a long time and getting a lot of practice under themselves. So even with Solo Troll or without Divio specifically, these 4 players are still going to stand out, and a decent game, I would say, from Solar Troll on this tier, but I would say a better game out of Aurora on this Jormungandr. If I'm Rival, I'm looking at that support position. I'm either picking it for myself or taking it away in the first 2 bans.
Yeah, now is when the Splyce effect really comes in, because now if you're Rival, you have to start making adjustments that are specific to Splyce, and they haven't really shown you what's on page 2 yet. They've done this a Wheelish Jormungandr combination twice now.
Yes.
So we don't really know what they go to once one of those is taken away. So I almost wonder if maybe you just try and strategize a little bit better for that and hope they pick it again, because Page 2 might be scarier. You never really even know. It's just tough when you're up against someone like Splyce who can do so much to know the right steps to take.
That's right, and Rival have been able to show off different strategies as well with the Habwa, the Hachiman Fafnir in game number 1, this attack speed kind of style, versus more global pressure between the Chernobog and Mercury in game number 2.
Do you think this Ares worked out for Polar Bear Mike, though? I'm glad you started talking about Rival's draft a little bit there, because I don't know if they got quite enough out of that pick. Maybe if they have something else in here, when they're making a few of those like counter pushes, they actually could be a little bit stronger.
I think the idea behind the Ares was trying to limit solo or troll, specifically with the cripples, and that kind of hurt the dual laning phase out of PBM, where he got picked off very early, not really respecting the damage potential out of Splyce. And an Ares that falls behind, it kind of hurts your mental game, but at the same time, you flip that around, if it was PBM getting that first blood, then all of a sudden, Rival are popping off and they could find the victory.
All of a sudden, they're the ones pushing forward and making moves. Either way, though, let's move into the picks and bans now for Game 3. We are tied. It's a best of 3 going forward, as I like to say, and it'll be Rival in that first pick spot, which should mean now that they have that option. If they do want to go in and maybe try and take away this Yorm, maybe take away the Wheelish, it should be a little bit easier for them to do that from first pick.
I wouldn't be surprised if they stick to their guns and try to first pick the Achilles, though, because Fineokay has just had a remarkable time on this god, and I love best of 5 metas, because the very first game, Rival, they banned away the Xbalanque and the Apwash. This time, they realized what the real threat was in the support position.
And it was the Jormungandr. They get him off the board. And now it's time for Splyce to show us, like I was saying, what's on page 2 in their playbook. What else do they have when they can't synergize around this Wheelish? I wonder if the idea is maybe they want to keep Sino on the Wheelish and they do something like Bacchus, that's also very setup heavy, or do they kind of scrap that whole combo and just start looking towards something else?
I gotta ask you to say Jormungandr again, because that gave me shivers and chills the way you said it. I think Rival have the same shivers and chills banning that one away. But like you mentioned, between Sino's God Pool, Wheelish definitely stands out. And so when you think of Sino, you think Naja, Erlong Shen, and then the Wheelish. Surprisingly, Naja not picked or banned, as was Erlong Shen in these first 2 games. And I wouldn't be surprised if Splyce starts stretching to those 2 picks.
Totally. I'm actually bent over a little bit now because you're so correct. It could easily be Naja or Erlong Shen, and it would be so scary. Oh, he's so good at them. Okay, we'll see in a moment, though, as Achilles comes in first for Rival. And I think Fineokay has earned this. I think that this is the right thing to do here, because he's played out of his mind on it so far. So if you're on Rival and you're thinking, I wonder what we're going to do with our other 4 picks, because you know that you're getting Achilles for fine.
I made a comment saying how I almost thought it would have been better for Bologna in game number 2 for Rival to pick once Xbalanque was locked in by Splyce, because the late game factor with the Scourge disarm. But honestly, the way Fineokay played the Achilles, it makes a lot of sense. He's just so comfortable on him. He's able to really out-bully anyone in the laning phase and then out-rotate you as well, using that passive for the extra mobility. Really hard to keep up with that rotation.
Well, the Artemis hovered, now the Hachiman hovered. So Splyce playing some mind games here. I'd be surprised if they did take Artemis this early on in the draft. She can be rather punished. You don't want to signal that over to Rival, so very likely that won't be coming through. But Splyce now have to show us what else Kabam has in the book. That's right, the coach back there. He's the one that initially gave him the idea to come group up in the house last year in Season 5 and turn the team around, and they really value him as a mind for the team.
I like the Hachiman taking that away from Arkil. Cerberus is a flex pick between Aurora and I would say Divios, but I'm not sure if SOT has that in his God Pool. This is something that Splyce do a lot between Artio and Cerberus in Season 5, flexing that between solo and support. And normally, when it is the Cerberus, it leads to a Freya pick. So Rival, they should be aware of this.
They should certainly be worried about it. And you're right. Sometimes Freya, I mean, she'll be building like the Demonic Grip. She'll be building the Telekines. And maybe it's a little bit later on when she gets dedicated pen. All that magical prot shred from the Cerberus is so helpful.
At max rank, that Ghastly Breath second ability, at full stacks, it's about 42 penetration coming out of that one ability. And you add a Freya to the mix, and whoever Boswell wants to play afterwards is thriving off of that one ability.
Well, right back into the Habwa. Remember, this was something that they picked up in game number 1, I believe, and it's what kind of helped them win that game by taking out Solar Troll so well. So that's going to be likely going back to Panda Cat in the middle lane. They've also grabbed the Jing Wei. This will be going over to the Hunter role for Arkle. and gives them some safety here too. So maybe not looking to fight right away, but certainly a strong comp.
So even though Hachiman is locked in for Cyclone Spin, you can maybe still run Freya in the jungle. I'm not sure if Sino has been practicing this, but between the Ghastly Breath and now even the Clay Golems out of Nuwa, that's a lot of magical penetration already.
I wonder if that is kind of the idea, to have a magical jungler, maybe the Freya, maybe even someone else who could benefit from the penetration there, since they have so much, like you said, Shred that's available to them right now. But maybe they're worried they might end up a little bit too reliant on the magic damage as Nemesis banned away. And the pace has picked up a little bit here in these picks and bans. Looks like these teams getting a little bit more confident with each other.
I agree, but knowing Splyce, they're probably going to stick to their comfort picks between maybe Naja or Erlang Shen. Keep in mind,
I hope so.
Ratatasker, totally forgotten about in this set so far, as we're in game number 3.
Wow, the Awilish ban. So far, Rival have banned away the entirety of that combo that worked so well in games number 1 and 2. The Awilish and the Jormungand, they're both been taken off, as well as Fenrir Shibalanke, but a little bit less hurt by that since they already have the Hachiman. So now Splyce must reveal something about what it is they plan on putting all these pieces.
Looking for their next pick. It should be a jungle pick, knowing that Rival also need a jungle pick. So if it's going to be a highly contested one between Twig and Sino, the one thing, it could be Naja, it could be Ratatasker. I just don't know which.
Camazotz. Wow, okay. Well, remember, we saw Camazotz getting played a lot by Belair yesterday, even not into the King Arthur matchup, which is how he's typically thought of nowadays. But he showed us that there's plenty of just damage there, which is good.
That's true. So we know Camazotz not going in the support position for Aurora, so that's either jungle or the solo lane. Probably going to go to SOT. Up against the Achilles, not a bad look there. Hitting your Vampire Bat's going to sustain, making sure you're not going to drop under that execute threshold is what you're really looking for. And the way he played the tier was relatively good with the control, but this is a different style now on the Camazotz. You just got the long-range nuke damage instead.
That's right. This is very different from the tier that we saw him playing. This is instead someone who's looking to get in there and, like you said, land a lot of these very critical skill shots. We've seen them die just from missing one Vampire Bat sometimes in fights, so it's going to have to be high execution.
More pressure now on Solo Troll in game number 3. That's, had some good moments, but also some questionable ones, and on the Camazotz needing to have a near-perfect game, and against Fineokay, that's a tall task.
Oh, yes, it is. Fineokay really has improved in between the games. I was able to kind of like scroll a little bit through Twitter, and you can just see some of the other pros just sounding off, man, about how well Fineokay has played. And I think he really has kind of made that name for himself. Polar Bear Mike called it before they even started playing, that this guy was going to be something special for him.
Global pressure. Ratatasker now being available for Captain Twig. Should be a good look for him. Still not sure what Splyce is going to go in that jungle position, but when you got an immobile Hobwa that's only relying on his carpet, that global pressure could definitely bail him out of a sticky situation.
Fafnir, not a bad last pick at all, number 9th overall in this draft for Rival, to give them quite a bit of control and some safety factor. A lot of the times supports, Guardians get punished early, but Fafnir has access to 2 jumps, a nice ultimate to get himself out of danger too. A great pick for Rival to round it out.
Good objective control as well with a coerced attack speed onto a Jingwei that's going to be probably building into a crit, especially if it's a double assassin composition out of Splyce that's hovering over this Arachne. Not sure if that's actually going to get locked in, but knowing Splyce, nothing's off the table.
Oh, Erlang Shen's the play. Let's go ahead and lock this one in. I'd love to see it for Sino, man. Made such a name for himself playing it at Worlds last year and looking good on it. And he's having fun. Look at him.
Kabam even laughing in the background.
Yeah.
You could tell Splyce are feeling good about giving Sino one of his top 2 gods.
If they do lock this one in, they could just be having some fun as well, as they got plenty of bank time to work with. And it is the Erlang Shen locked in. And totally, I got no complaints over here on my side about picking this one up from a man. He should be able to be relevant for them at every stage of the game with this pick.
And this is important to have Erlang Shen for the crowd control aspect, because Camazotz doesn't have that much control in his own right.
Exactly.
He's going to be looking for the long damage nuke ability. So having servers, having Erlang Shen, and then Camazotz for the 3rd wave cleanup. I like Splyce's composition, but it needs to be good execution, especially the way they kind of handled Panicat in game number 1, Hobwa, keeping him out of the equation. But if you give Panicat any safety, and he's the one dealing the damage, that's where Splyce lost it in the first game.
That's where things got out of control, so that's a great point. They got to find something to slow down this Hobwa, but we'll delay you no longer. Game 3 just about to get underway. Splyce up against Rival. Let's get it over to Tom and Taco to bring us the call.
Thanks a lot, guys. Getting ready here for game number 3. I think the biggest thing is staying hot. And at the end of the day, looking at Splyce, you know what sets Sino apart from the rest of them?
What sets Sino apart?
He has the Counter-Strike. He's got the Counter-Strike angle on his keyboard. That's why he's so hot.
Is that really all it comes down
That's
to?
it.
Just what angle you play at determines how like proficient you are as a gamer?
Absolutely. Got to get that gamer slant going on.
So isn't Shing technically our greatest Smite player of all time then?
Oh my god. Do you guys, she's referencing, Shing used to move with the arrow keys and then use his other hands to, his abilities were on the numpad. We'll talk about it later because Splyce grouped up here, matching Team Rivals 5v5. Looking for a scrum. Roar on the doggo. Cyclone spin. All the way in the back.
Not a chance.
Yeah, they're just going to walk away, right?
This is just one of those instances where it's like, no, you do something. No, you do something.
You first.
You know when you like hit your brother as like kids, you know, and then you just see which one of you runs to the parents first. Well,
yeah.
That kind of felt like that standoff between these two teams where both of them kind of showing what they have to offer. But as far as level 1 fights are concerned, I doubt that Rival really want to try messing about with Splyce. That level 1 fight, I think, would definitely be better suited to the boys in red.
That's why we see Rival kind of walk away. Solo or Troll here on the Camazotz. Going to bring out his assassin. So far, we've seen the Bologna, we've seen some other warrior attempt, and now we're going to see the Camazotz here.
I can't help myself, by the way, and it's something so small and probably gremlin-brained of me, but the way Camazotz runs after he does an attack and is just like wobbling his arms at you, like it's just the least threatening thing of all time until he starts, doing 1 billion damage at level 2, but
So it's something you relate to very much so.
yes.
You kind of wobble
That's the way
here.
I run, for
you're
sure.
You're like 5'0", kind of wobbling at somebody, and then you give him the old haymaker and Tolly's on the floor, right?
Yeah, straight into the kneecaps, the only part that I can ever actually reach.
But the power not to be underestimated, neither for my co-commentator or the Camazotz. Risen to prominence because of the successful King Arthur matchup, but then players kind of realized, well, he doesn't really bring much crowd control, Taco, but the sustain in lane and the damage he does bring, the ability to get on out, very, very strong.
I think what I like the most about this Camazotz pick is that it's going to provide a constant threat against Fineokay yet again. Just as he's escaping the Jormungandr because of the bans phase, well, now you have to deal with the bat out of hell, and it will feel like Fineokay is trapped in hell at times if Solo or Troll is able to get the better end of him. It's very common, I think, for Camazotz to just walk around to the backside of a team fight, right at the very end of it when you think you're going to have the disengage opportunity and just start swooping down on top of your carries.
Screech, bats, swoop, swoop, swoop. SOT can certainly be a threat, but he's got to get there first and foremost. Fineokay has been strong. Admittedly stronger out of lane than in lane. Solo or Troll has been able to tango, been able to dance with what Fineokay has been bringing to the table, so to speak, but Solo or Troll, when it comes to the team fights, successful, but Fineokay has just really made a giant impact.
And I think now is the game where we'll really get a chance to see if Solo or Troll is able to kind of match pace, or if anything, create one of his own, because this Camazotz is going to be instrumental to Splyce's success this game, because Camazotz is probably going to have the best chance at looking to collapse on top of Fineokay, keep Arkil zoned away from the fights even.
Aurora going to take some damage as the invade goes awry. Or successful, actually. Picks up the purple, but he's going to lose his life, most likely. Running around in circles, and Arkil finds the last hit. A little bit predictable there. 4 players surround you. You're going down, buddy.
Aurora might not have had his leap just yet. Not sure if he maybe used it to get into the purple buff at the start, but no, instead, he doesn't have that leap available just yet. Smart catch out from Rival to look for that immediate punish, but now it's up to Cyclone Spin, getting the beads out of Arkil from a nice Aijitsu. Sino is around, but so's Captain Twig.
Yeah, the junglers meet each other. They both got the same memo. More damage out of Sino than Captain Twig, though. A shell comes out, perhaps prematurely, but it's out there. So not a lot of actives on the side of Team Rival. If Sino wants to come back to this lane, he absolutely can punish.
Sino had the blink, but since he was just put into combat against Captain Twig. And then once that shell came through, you just don't really want to risk Fineokay having possibly been making his way over from the mid lane. So, all's fair right now, but it's Rival who actually find themselves just a little bit further behind than Splyce, despite getting that first blood.
Exactly. Splyce had found some extra wins, the purple buff being one of them, and some other invades, but a nice play there. 4:20 on the clock, and Rival up 1-0. Splyce trying to make sure that they can control this set. Answering back was very important. Splyce basically won game number 1, but Rival actually crossed the finish line. And then game 2 a little bit more the way game 1 should have went if you ask Splyce. As we approach game number 3 though, or as we're in game number 3, that reset extremely important, I think, for player mentality.
And it basically is going to be played out now a little bit more so like a best-of-3 series. That's just kind of the opportunity that Splyce have given themselves. But Rival, for what it's worth, at least as far as the cameras are concerned, they didn't look super relieved after that Game 1 victory.
No.
They definitely did not look happy after the way Game 2 wound up. And it's just starting to feel a little bit more and more like, for the first time in a while, we see Rival kind of flustered.
Yeah. Polar Bear Mike certainly not liking the way his team has been playing in this series whatsoever. And I think Splyce, that's the interesting thing, is that, yeah, you know, these booths are soundproof, right? You're not going to hear a roar screaming. But, I mean, you saw the player camera highlights and the replays, right? You were looking across and just seeing Splyce with all the animation, all the energy in the world, and Team Rival just don't really seem to have that. And I think that's a big deal.
Well, Solo Troll trying to go toe-to-toe right now with Fineokay, but it's Aurora who could find himself in a world of trouble. Going to be able to get away from that water spout, though, out of PandaCat. And without that last little tick of damage, now it's Sino making the return. Blink in straight onto Captain Twig. Moswell up into the air as well with that new ult. Probably expecting more to happen.
Well, I also love that play because it's going to show you where the Ratatasker is. That's also the component of the new ultimate that people forget. Rituals are gone, but revealing ritual is still on that ultimate. When Moswell goes up, all players on the map are identified, and so you can see if there really is that gank going on the left side, or if the Rat's just going to hang out in the old jungle like that was actually going down. That new ult does next to no damage at this point in the game. It is strictly a satellite vision.
I think it's a nice little tool to have, though, just if you're looking to de-incentivize a team that was probably trying to look for a gank opportunity onto Aurora. Solo Troll, Fineokay, they have just been going at it non-stop for this Totem of Coup.
Meanwhile, mid lane, the whole sort of fight. There's a big boy ultimate and a PandaCat. That's what he was looking for in game number 1. Water Cannon coming up in a moment. Damage dealt to Aurora, so is a knockup. Sino and Aurora won't be able to be involved in the next team fight. The kill goes down on top of Captain Twig, or excuse me, Moswell. Captain Twig on the side of Team Rival. But still not enough room to look for a gold Fury. The threat of Cyclone Spin big enough to keep Team Rival at bay.
But a jungler for a mid laner could possibly be a little bit more important for PandaCat. Early on, at least, you expect the Erlang Shen, I think, to have a slight advantage even over the Ratatosker just because of those Beast Warrior stats. I think giving Erlang a little bit more of an edge, plus the Turtle Form knockup.
Sure.
That is, I think, the main reason why we even saw Twig die in the first place there.
Yeah,
but
big damage.
I liked what I saw from Polar Bear Mike in the way that he tried to position himself in front of PandaCat. That way it kind of blocks off when that crushing wave's going to begin.
I always talk about the instincts of a player, specifically support, and that's one of them. Polar Bear Mike has been doing this since the eager days, and I remember getting very excited about Polar Bear Mike out of nowhere when he was, you know, no disrespect to nobody, really just a pluck from the ranked leaderboards, if you remember the original story. And it's that type of mentality. Yeah, you want a body block for your partner. That's generally good advice, but trying to protect and try to hide what your teammates are doing, that's that next level instinct that I think PBM really brings to the table. And to be fair, Aurora does as well across the way. That's why I really liked this matchup. Rarely do I get excited about, support versus support, but this is the type of matchup that is where you get excited.
I think it's very easy, at least, to get excited watching both Aurora
Yeah.
and Polar Bear Mike in action. These two guys have really both been on the glow up ever since their debuts, and now Fineokay going to be made the focal point, but one more time, Aurora doesn't even let him get that crushing wave off.
If the wave comes out, it's a very different team fight, and Splyce know it. So the all-in commit to the Waterman, and Fineokay falls down for the first time this game, one in all his columns.
Can't take damage once that crushing wave is channeled, but anything that was hitting you beforehand, that is all fair play, and Captain Twig going to be left with no mid Harpies, as I believe Splyce successfully guaranteed both the left and right mid Harpies for themselves.
Yeah, nice stuff there. And a little bit more of an active game here. 10th minute, and we're going to see our 5th kill if things go right for SOT, but they'll go wrong. As Fineokay clings to life in the red underneath the tower. PBM, on the other hand, getting aggressed on by Mr. Soloer Troll. Aurora's here, Fineokay still relevant. And Splyce will walk away. But it's 4 kills in total at the 10-minute mark. And a very active game number 3 we have.
Talk about being reeled in, though. Soloer Troll,
Yeah.
I think if any other team he was playing for right now, they look, or Soloer Troll commits to that dive and looks for the trade out. But because he's finding himself here in actual pro level play, I am honestly amazed that he held off from, I think, his general nature. Because anybody who knows Soloer Troll will tell you that dude looks for that kill every single time.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a very aggressive player, but we were talking about the major differences. Soloer Troll streams very high-level ranked, usually with matches with these pro players, but definitely on the low side of things, and a minor league player, very strong in and of himself. But when we talk about the differences between the league, it's more than just the player skill potential gap. It's also, you know, the meta game they're in.
But the fact that he knows how to turn it on and off,
Exactly.
it's the switch that I think a lot of amateur level players can kind of struggle with. But Soloer Troll, honestly, has looked like this is somewhere he belongs to play in.
That's the biggest difference when I saw Sam for Soccer as well. Sam for Soccer, once upon a time, got called up by Eager too early and didn't know how to turn it off. Overly aggressive, diving towers, getting killed, and then the second time we see him really look fantastic is last year on that trifecta roster with Paul, and everybody talks about how crazy he is. Still aggressive, but understanding how to reel it in, to use your terminology, and that's the difference, is being able to flip that switch, like you said.
And I spent like a decent amount of time, you know, kind of talking with Aurora, just lightly going over things, because this is a team that's also, Splyce has just been waiting weeks to play. And now that they're finally getting their chance to have a little bit of that competitive action yet again, the fact that they are still playing with so much player discipline goes to show, I think, it's not just team synergy even, but these guys just, they didn't win Worlds off of a fluke.
Exactly, and this is the continuation of that. This is that player discipline, the synergy, the camaraderie is perhaps a bigger word for it, is a big part of why these guys are the defending world champs. You know, it's funny, we see the weird start, quote unquote, the normal start, the duo lane sticks together over there on the side. Polar Bear Mike lanes with his mid laner. Guess what? Polar Bear Mike has laned with Fineokay once or twice before. We've seen that. So Rival also kind of showing signs of what Splyce has brought to the table as well. I think that's what makes this matchup so much fun to watch.
And even with only 4 kills spread across in just shy of 13 minutes now, Splyce and Rival, I think, I don't want to call it hesitation, but they are both definitely paying their respects to the other as far as which jungle corridors they're going to try to, you know, traverse through. We've only seen very calculated periods of aggression from both of these teams. Right now, Mazel going up into the air, I think to possibly even check if Rival were looking for the Gold Fury.
That's exactly what it was. Again, low damage, but certainly a vision tool. A roar here, but the damage already done. Rival snatch away the Gold Fury. Even that's pure. That is pure just audacity there from Team Rival. Splyce go, hey, where is everybody? Well, maybe they're on gold. We've confirmed they're on gold. And Rival go, yes, we're on gold. We've got the damage. Here it comes.
By the way, that only happens because Sino is MIA for a minute tops, and Rival immediately look to sees an opportunity that was briefly given to them.
Very
And
briefly.
that's something, too, where Rival, I think, would have been A-okay with taking the fight if there had been one to start off. But Aurora and Cyclone being the only 2 members to try and interfere with the Gold Fury, there's just no real reason for Rival to really pay them much mind. Just stay on the objective. They had to confirm with PandaCat.
That's why PandaCat didn't even use the ultimate. He said, if you want to blink in and try and get this, I'll ult you and the Phoenix, or the Gold Fury. You know, it's definitely a look here for Team Rival, ready to take it and run with it. But I liked the play there. And again, you were talking about, Sino missing for just a small amount of time. Again, returning to the mentality of the Pro League versus some of the other leagues and some of the other competition levels. Very tiny windows of opportunity that you have to shove more than you're used to right in there.
Ping's already coming through the way of Rival, might I add. Seems as though they've taken an interest into that Pyromancer, and which is why we saw Sino and Solo Rotrol not even a full another couple of minutes after that Gold Fury goes down, and they're already face-checking Pyro just to make sure that Rival aren't looking to do the same exact thing they did on Gold.
That's a big deal here because Pyromancer not really worth that much, but when doubles down and you're able to get multiple Pyromancers, then you got to be concerned. Aurora not too concerned about a little stun there, so able to walk away no problem. Couple of ultimates used, Aurora and Arkles both used in the fray.
But all Aurora wanted was PandaCat's purification beads, because now without those beads, he's susceptible to being knocked up by Sino, but Stingent Torment having been expended does give Rival a power play moment onto this Pyromancer, and Splyce are just going to have to let that one go for free. They knew it was happening, just nothing they could really do about it.
Tiny window of opportunity. Arkle knocked up, and even with the Aegis going to fall down. Cyclone Spin combines with the Jungle Gank and a Sino, and the French Hunter will go down for the count. Tier 1 tower still alive. No commit to it from Splyce.
But there are some buffs at the ready here, and Rival knows Splyce are deep inside their jungle. Solar Troll going to be forced out of his own Camazot's ultimate, that Bat Out of Hell just being used as an escape method.
Not sure he needed to really run the ultimate, but better safe than sorry, I suppose. Could he have gotten out of there without it?
Might have assumed that Captain Twig was nearby as well, because Fineokay was still pushing into Solo Troll despite the fact that the wave was already mostly cleared.
Sure. Yeah, as I said, better safe than sorry. We commended his discipline earlier, but at the same time, too much discipline becomes hesitation. And as the old adage goes, hesitation leads to devastation. So Solo Troll has to find that happy medium of being aggressive, perhaps not too aggressive, etc., etc. I think he looked pretty good in the set so far. And 17 minutes into game number 3, looking to make an impact on the Assassin this time around.
Captain Twig hovering Solo Troll.
No ult.
Wanting to punish this Camazotz for having used that Bat Out of Hell so preemptively, but Sino already making the heads-up play, knowing that his soul laner is probably going to come under fire since he used that ult super recently.
Polar Bear Mike's here along with PandaCat. Sino in trouble, and PBM will put a dot on that one. Big damage out of the mid lane Hebo. Certainly different than game number 1. I think this is the amount of damage Hebo had at 30 minutes.
Different build as well from PandaCat, actually rushing the Divine Ruin as opposed to what I believe was a Spear of Desolation
Yeah,
in that spot.
Yeah, it was a Spear of Deso early. Now, Divine Ruin will provide some nice stats, but also, perhaps more importantly, shut down the sustain of the Camazotz. That's really the healing that you're looking for. Sino also going to benefit as well, who dies without the ultimate. Perhaps knowing that the damage from PandaCat would have negated the healing off of that taunt.
Keep in mind, though, when Oni Fury is about to spawn, Sino will be back up and running for it should Rival aim to kind of turn their heads in that direction. But Splyce also, I think, have had a rather tough time looking for a way to harass PandaCat, because it can't really be Sino doing it alone, or even Aurora really doing it alone. It has to be a team effort right now from Splyce, but if you get too close, you're going to get smacked.
Yeah, those water hands going to come out for sure. Knockup's good. The carpet will lay the way, but Full commit from Polar Bear Mike. I don't know if everybody got the memo. Here comes the rat, and Sino gonna go down before anybody can get any sort of mail. Number 4 for Team Rival. They'll look for the purple invade. And Taco, you know what time it is?
It's coerce time.
Oni
Captain
Fury.
Twig already pulling onto the Oni Fury, and it is just melting. If Splyce want to go in, they're going to have to go now.
There's a roar going in. Team Rival get the Gold Fury somehow, but Girdle means go! And the dog on the run. Fineokay with a dash and a kill. Number 5 for Team Rival. Their punishment game, very, very strong. They're looking to lock everyone up here. And it's working. Tier 1 tower already obliterated earlier. The Gold Fury gone as well. And Team Rival find themselves comfortably in the lead. 4,000 gold at the moment. Fire Giant might be pushing it, so instead players will look for the farm near the tower. And perhaps a tier 1 in the solo.
Nice job from Solo Troll, though, keeping the speed buff alive for his jungler. But that's 2 times now, I believe, that we have seen Sino just look for the, I don't want to call it an aggressive play, but the defensive getaway.
Yeah.
And Rival are just not allowing him any room to breathe. This Erlang typically being the first one to fall. And I think Sino has really just struggled with finding any sort of opening that he can look to try and collapse on the Panic Cat. It's just, Panic Cat does so much damage. And I'm starting to think that as problematic as that Jorm pick was for Rival, Splyce might need to give this Habwa the same sort of treatment.
It's interesting because the Habwa was kept in check largely because of the Jorm. Panda was too afraid to really get into anything, and although that sentence is kind of structured negatively towards Panda, he had a reason to be afraid when any knockup could just murder him. Splyce now don't have the option to have that invisible guardian, and so Panda Cat, on the other hand, is less afraid. That said, still relatively low in the player damage, but the threat of activation, again, being the biggest thing that Rival have at their disposal.
Cyclone Spin on the run right now. Fatal Strike, though, not going to be able to thread the needle, but the through the Cosmos is even better. Still, Cyclone is alive.
Great job.
And kicking. Beautifully knocked up by Sino there to save the life of his hunter.
Exactly. Sino did everything he needed to do. Fineokay tossed into a wall, but there's a knockup from Panda Cat, and again, the frenzy means fight. Team Rival still on the retreat, though. Just as good as it is as an initiation tool. Scratch that. Panda Cat hits one with the ultimate, but is locked behind enemy bars. And Aurora picks that one up. Team Rival a little bit split there. The frenzy popped. That sends Splyce going. Half the team retreat, meaning Rival. Half the team aggress. Miscommunication there, it looked like.
I'm amazed, though, that Cyclone managed to survive through all of that. Just perfect toggling of the Aegis to keep himself alive just long enough for Sino to come through with that turtle form to ultimately save his life.
Yep.
And it's also a really important pick onto Panda Cat because Panda did lose his Purification Bees yet again, but Solar Troll found his first time in the backline, I think, with that Bat Out of Hell, and it caused all of Rival to scatter. Fortunately for Rival, PBM still had the Frenzy, and as long as that Girdle is being popped, there is not a single team that's going to try to push into all that boosted damage.
I like to see that Frenzy pick up here from Polar Bear Mike. He's done this a couple of times now in the league, and certainly using it here. And as you said, it's also an interesting sort of defensive usage. All these are offensive, but when the enemy team has access to 10% more raw damage, 15% attack speed, by the way, it gets better when you upgrade it, you don't want to fight that and you run away.
It is important to note, though, that I think because of Panic Cat on the hub wall, that's the main reason why we see Mike being able to flex into the Girdle as opposed to a sprint to deal with Aurora's Horrific. But if Aurora is able to upgrade this Horrific anytime soon, I still think that attack speed slow could pose a different series of issues for members like Arkill, because Arkill has started to work his way up in the damage charts.
Yep.
But everyone else on Rival has really just been depending on Fineokay to be that leading cavalry charge.
What's really effective for Team Rival, though, as you mentioned Arkill's name, is the double knockup. You've got the persistent gust going right into the water spout from Panda Cat. I mean, you're like, oh, I got knocked up by the Jingwei. Oh, I got knocked up by the Hebo. Oh, I got knocked up by the Ratatasker, and I'm dead now. That's no fun at all.
But it was also a perfect example of what happens when Fineokay is a little bit too reckless with that crushing wave. He thought he had a kill opportunity onto Aurora, but Aurora just barely managing to leap away in time, and so Fineokay then winds up body blocking himself inside the heart of Splyce.
You could also look at it the other way. The team was split. Not enough players went with him. So 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. But again, Hebo providing just as many problems as solutions for this team rival, as they've selected him twice now in the game, in 3 games.
He really is kind of just a walking problem/solution.
Yeah. I mean, a well-timed Hebo ultimate will be great. You want to trade out, that's fine. But also, that's the perfect, I can't find a better example. You ultimate, you hit a tank, and then there's a wall of players that you can't get behind. That's why we see Blink Hebo at a lower level. I think that you need both Beads and Aegis if you're going to play Hebo. Maybe an upgraded Brazier.
You know who's someone we haven't really talked about a whole lot this game is Mozwall.
Mozzie has been doing kind of what we've seen him do at Worlds, which is play very passive.
Well, Mozwall's never going to try to meet Hubwa early on. I don't think that's really Nuwa's forte, so to say. But now that Mozwall is kind of approaching that level 20 mark, got a decent amount of itemization online, also has a Divine Ruin of his own, he could really start to chunk with this new wall and have some setup opportunities.
Roar takes some damage out of Fineokay. 75% left there. Fineokay with a knockup and some water hands and assistance from the team, sure, but a lot of Hebo damage right there as now the Obsidian Shard is done. Magical protections cut down just a little bit. Splyce here trailing by 6,000 at the 25-minute mark. Captain Twig gets caught out. Is the ultimate defensively.
That's big for Splyce, though. That is one part of the puzzle that they're not going to have to worry about breaking. Captain Twig, without that through the Cosmos for a little bit longer here, is going to lose an important utility tool, I think, for Fineokay. But Rival, as confident as ever, still looking to strip away this Pyromancer, and Splyce just got to pay it no mind. They're perfectly cool with forfeiting all the little global objectives like the Gold Furies, the Primal Fury, Oni, doesn't matter. But it's all about, I think, protecting the Enhanced Fire Giant from falling into the hands of Rival. If that goes Rival's way, then Splyce, as tough as it's looked for them to even have the brief comebacks that they have, it's only going to get worse.
That's certainly something you've got to be aware of. And Splyce has just been doing just that. If you lose one to the Pyromancer fight, now the much more important fight is in a different world. Frenzy is popped. Fire Giant down to 33%. Mozwall goes to the sky to push players off. Not going to happen. Solar Troll's here, but the Rat's in the sky one more time. Full retreat off of the Fire Giant. Now players looking for the engagement. Fineokay on the left-hand side. Ratatasker looking for a target. Aurora won't be one because he's already dead. Arkle with the hammer. Captain Twig gets one as well. Mozzie sits down. Now, Cynoshore looking for a kill. He'll get one, but at what cost? Fineokay tells him the cost of his own life. 4 players sit down. Cyclone Spin on the outside looking in. And the Enhanced Fire Giant goes to Team Rival after the team fight.
It's just too much damage. Rival have just been able to have their way with this map in Game 3 here, doubling that which Splyce were able to put out in that last team fight even. And it's really just boiling down to the fact that Splyce's front line being composed of a Camazotz and a Cerberus just is not doing the trick.
It really isn't. The Zots is the problem, and realistically, when I see the Camazotz go the half-tank build, I need something very similar out of Cyno, but Cyno's been blown up. 2, 3, and 3, not very much mitigation. You see the Toxic Blade because they want him to go into some of the anti-heal, that's all well and good. Winged Blade, kind of pseudo. I mean, I'm at least buying a Masamune. I understand you want the protection shred, so I understand the green sword. I think this is a correct, a right build. It's not a wrong build here, Taco, but you just don't have the tankiness needed.
I guess for me, it's just the fact that both Cyno and Solo Troll opted for the blinks, and yet we've seen maybe 1 or 2 blinks aggressively. I want to add aggressively for Splyce. Even Aurora with his blink now starting to feel like more of a detriment to the entirety of Splyce, because Splyce aren't the initiators. You go blink on 3 different frontliners when you want to be the initiating factor, but Rival are not allowing for that to be the case here. They are just utilizing Captain Twig in a way to just kind of do what Splyce has been doing to Rival for the past 2 games, split apart the team fight.
It's been so successful. Over 10,000 gold here. Team Rival has above Splyce. As we near that half-hour point, that is a much different graph than we've seen this set.
But that's not to say that Splyce couldn't have their comeback season. I mean, even though Rival has had full control of the jungle, that's not necessarily going to be the case underneath the Phoenixes. Yes, Rival has a ton of burst damage between Arcul and Panicat right now, but it's not a guarantee that Arcul and Panicat are going to be able to find the carries underneath Splyce's Titan room. I think that's going to be way more difficult for Rival to siege than what meets the eye currently, because all we've seen so far is jungle fights, and of course that's going to favor a Habois.
Absolutely, the Habois certainly can make the moves during the siege as well. But I'm with you. A strong ultimate from Aurora, good taunt on a Sino, and all of a sudden, this Phoenix siege looks very, very different. That said, Taco, 15,000 gold.
The odds are definitely not in Splyce's favor. I'll put it that way. If I were to make a bet, it probably wouldn't be on Splyce, you know, having the easiest of times underneath those Phoenixes, but I can't rule them out just yet, because we have seen 2 different instances now where Panicat has just been ever so slightly off the mark with that crushing wave, and then that was the wiggle room that Splyce needed to truly try and punish this Rival roster. Right now, Captain Twig even having some troubles just trying to 1v1 with Sino, gonna get that through the Cosmos rather early on. Captain Twig even almost dead.
Yeah, Captain Twig on the runaway there. The rest of his team in the middle lane. Twiggy will have to go back to base.
But that is critical, because now Splyce don't have to worry about playing base defense, at least not for another minute and a half or so, and this is all precious enhanced Fire Giant time that's just going to waste.
Yeah, the enhanced Fire Giant has not even been used for a Phoenix push. It's going to run out relatively soon as well. Pyromancer goes down. Splyce, you've got to look at that as a win. Team Rival get the enhanced Fire Giant after a 4-for-1 trade, and they get Pyromancer. You need to get more off of that, but just Captain Twig getting caught out. Is that the only reason?
Well, it really is, I think, Sino finding Captain Twig, because even though Sino hasn't made his build into that of like a true frontliner that Splyce might need, he can definitely afford those 1v1 engagements to just force out the ultimate from Captain Twig. And if Twig doesn't have his through the Cosmos, well, there's no one to try and collapse onto Moswell or Cyclone Spin. And that, in turn, just makes the life a little bit easier for Aurora and Solo or Troll, and it also makes Rival feel uncomfortable with looking for the engage.
Right now, Rival certainly comfortable with their positioning. The Fire Giant coming up in a matter of moments, and Splyce not even in the front yard. They're down the block, and Team Rival making sure they stay there. Fineokay and Polar Bear Mike providing the zoning, while the carries pushed a little bit back. If anybody from Splyce jump up too far, they're going to get eaten, but likely the Fire Giant will be started soon.
Have to keep in mind, though, if Fineokay and Polar Bear Mike are both trying to zone out the entirety of Splyce, that's going to force Twig, Arcul, and Panicat to tank up that enhanced FG.
Well, there's a knockup. Polar Bear Mike looking for the transformation. And the rat in the sky. A full-on commit from Team Rival once the Fire Giant spawns. There's the frenzy as well. Polar Bear Mike on the backside. Solo or Troll in the sky, and Polar Bear Mike in the ground. Big ultimate coming out from Panicat, though. Lines himself up for the Doubleoon. 3 kills without a death for the mid-lane monster. Polar Bear Mike is down, Taco. But Team Rival are going to heal up, back off. I don't know if Fire Giant's the right call, but they're thinking about it.
Sino knows he's right on top of these wards. He can tell just from where he's currently standing that Rival are not pulling the Fire Giant. And that alone, it's just going to be another standoff. Both of these teams just knowing when to respect their boundaries. And for Sino, despite all those low HP thresholds on the side of Rival, Sino goes in there, he dies.
Absolutely.
Instantly.
Yep. Panicat a little bit too scary now. 4-2-4. Mahabwa reaching critical mass. Picked up the Ratatouille as well, and now he's number 2 on his team.
Something really important to note, though, is the relic trade-off from that last engagement. Splyce might have lost more members up front, but they held on to a lot of their actives for their carries in comparison to Rival. Rival now looking at this enhanced Fire Giant. Splyce know that this is going on, but if they want to find their entry, they're going to have to go in soon.
Well, the Fire Giant cut down to 45% already. Oswald uses the ultimate to knock players off. Sino gonna beads away the knockup. Rat still on the chase, and Sino goes down one more time. Arkle with all of the shots. Solo or Troll is gonna go to the sky, trying to help out. Can't find a kill. Arkle now uses the ultimate and comes on back. Aurora likely to fall as he's surrounded by members. It's a baker's dozen for Team Rival. They're gonna push up the mid lane while Fineokay corrals 3 separate players. Solo or Troll tries bat out of hell, but it's Team Rival moving like a bat out of hell up the middle lane. They're going to look for the catch. They're going to look for all these players. Polar Mike jumps on top of Mozzie, and the Aegis is good.
But they're still alive inside of the Fountain Room. Team Rival, though, taking a gander at this Titan instead. Cyclone Spin and Moswell both incredibly low, but it's just going to have to be the Phoenix and get out for Rival. Still a massive victory for Rival to have gotten in the first place.
Very scary. I definitely thought Rival might have gone for the full commit, especially after seeing the damage from the double knockup out of Panda. I think it's easy to get carried away there. Informational ultimate coming out from Moswell, wanting to see where Splyce had gone. Team Rival all the way home.
It was, I think, wishful thinking for Moswell's side of things that maybe Rival would be on the enhanced Fire Giant and Splyce could look for a turnaround opportunity, but that's not going to be the case here. As one more time, Rival start pulling away at this enhanced Fire Giant. Solo Ritual going to be the first one into the fray, and he'll be the first one out of there as well.
Yeah, just the ultimate forced out. Splyce trailing by 20,000 gold now. Relevant because of boots and potions, but largely almost tied. Fineokay trying to zone. Now Team Rival looking for the fight one more time. Captain Twig in the sky. Sino could be the target as the Rat makes his way to the back line. Moswell gets knocked up and dash away, but Aurora stuck in the middle. And Panda Cat finds kill number 5. Now the jump forward, still looking for more. Captain Twig versus Sino all by themselves. Arkle versus Solo or Troll. And SOT sits on down. Knock up for Sino. He wall rides. Moswell provides some help. There's the ultimate and the one. The wet paper. The wet paper. And the knock up. Panda Cat baby. No damage in game 1. Certainly bringing it here in game 3.
That almost saved Sino, I believe, because he has the wing blade. And the Water Carver was guaranteed to help speed him up, but it also gave Panda Cat just the smallest opening to find that connecting water spout there. You could tell Sino a little bit of disappointment in his face off that death, but now Rival guaranteed this enhanced Fire Giant one more time, but even though they had it last time, it didn't really seem to serve them much purpose. Splyce were still able to hold their base intact. But now, since their mid-Phoenix has been breached, I'm kind of expecting Rival to just take their time, kind of resettling back into things, maybe even fake Splyce out into believing that, you know, there's not really a whole lot of action that's going to take place just yet, and then looking for picks around the corners.
Well, the Oni's very important here. It's going to give Splyce something to do, and then whichever lane they choose to clear, Team Rival will go to the other side. So a nice distraction play here as the Oni Fury will force Splyce to get involved. And Team Rival gonna group up and push, and I stress group up because the last time, as you noted, the enhanced Fire Giant kind of negated was because Captain Twig got picked off and there really wasn't anything for the squad to do as a whole.
Well, Splyce doing everything in their power right now to try and get that mid-wave as pushed up as possible. They want as much time as they can possibly buy themselves for when Rival starts making their way down this left side lane. Rival have already given indicators to Splyce, I think, too, that they're, you know, in the area and looking to continue sieging into the base of Splyce.
Left side will be the target of choice here for Team Rival. Captain Twig lonely in the middle lane, waiting for this Phoenix to respawn. Moswell is here to play some sort of defense, but largely Team Rival are getting aggressive.
Captain Twig is just going to focus that mid Phoenix. Splyce trying to take the fight instead on the left-hand side. Crushing Wave already been used as well by Pandacat.
Bat Out of Hell also used by SOT. Neither big-time ultimate really of expected effectiveness. 16-6, Team Rival trying to make that 21. See if they get the wipe they ask for. Polar Bear Mike tanking the Phoenix. And the Hunter unwilling to step up to really look for those shots. Knock him on a solo troll, and this should be the end of the Phoenix.
Captain Twig just going to blink in, toss out the flurry of acorns, see what he can grab, and it will be Moswell's Aegis off the Oikeron Blast. Now Polar Bear Mike wants to go in, but Pandacat just taking down Aurora before he even has the chance to escape.
Frenzy's popped, and everybody looks at the Titan just like that. Hey, P.S. Arkle gets a double kill along the way, and Team Rival commandingly take a victory in game number 3, match 2-1.
The game might have lasted nearly 40 minutes there, but it wasn't one of those matches where it felt back and forth. It mostly just came off as, I think, Splyce barely managing to find just enough of the defensive options and punish to save themselves a little bit of time, but ultimately just too much control. Or Rival had this one from start to finish.
Sino looks very upset. Not the game that he wanted to have here today. Meanwhile, right back to the drawing board. This is one of the things that I think will make Rival so successful, and hopefully it's something that they can kind of keep going. Polar Bear Mike, I know, is the type that even after a win go, we got this wrong, we got this wrong, we got this wrong. Captain Twig also looks at the game as kind of loose-mindedly as he seems, also looks at the game in a very kind of collegiate sense like that.
I wasn't really too big of a fan, though, of that Erlang in the last pick.
Yeah.
I just think that Sino needs something that he can dive that Hubwa with. If they're going to allow Pandacat to have the Hubwa, they can't afford to not have any sort of dive capability after the fact. Solo Troll as the sole Camazotz, I don't think he can really afford to do it alone just because of everything that Fineokay was forcing him to deal with on the front side.
I got to agree with that statement as well. I mean, Sino, this was basically just Sino saying, give me the Erlang, I'll do it. He wasn't able to do it. One more game for Team Rival should they want to take the match. Let's break it down.
I like what we heard there from our casters just now, Toli, that there did need to be someone on Pandacat on this Hobwa, but I don't know if it was supposed to be Erlang. I wonder if it was supposed to be this Camazotz, and Solar Troll couldn't quite get there.
I kind of agree with you, because game number 1, playing the Bologna, did a better job at diving with Eagles Rally. Game number 3 now on this Camazotz, more pressure on this rookie soul laner in the SPL, where you have to blink in, land your high execution abilities, maybe play a little bit of an easier AoE god to make that happen. Now you're putting more pressure onto Aurora to do that duty for him, and that wasn't the easiest task for him.
And it was made really difficult for all of them, I think, by Twig on this Ratatosker. He was just kind of hovering over these team fights time after time, making it hard for Splyce to really all-in engage and start any kind of fights. And even when they did engage, you know, he's dropping the knock-up. They kept the fight so dissected and split up that Splyce really were never able to get their comp to work.
And mounted archery, not enough to cover away the distance between PBM's double jump, Captain Twig through the Cosmos, and Solar Troll, he blinks in, but he's just like immediately blown away because he's going on a different target. Pandacat doing so much damage this fight, and this is what an offensive Hobwa looks like. Similar case where Pandacat kind of closed out game number 1, but this time around he had so much freedom in the third game.
I think so too. I think that play we just saw at the 32-minute mark was such a big turning point where he was able to turn things around with that Hobwa, because Splyce were kind of in it for a bit. Rival in the early game started to pull away, mostly I think with their control of the objectives. They got several Furies without Splyce contesting. They got several Pyromancers. And then when Splyce finally had to come in and actually sit down and take the test, they couldn't ace it.
I think that we're going to see a Ratatasker ban probably out of Splyce as a result.
Maybe so.
That global pressure a little bit too much. Hobwa definitely did a lot, but I think that you can handle a Hobwa in terms of picks and bans by picking something to lock him in. Maybe playing an Odin wouldn't be a bad idea.
Sure.
Forcing out a Phantom could be one way to do it, keeping him locked in that cage. But going 7-2 and 9 with plenty of player damage to follow suit, Maximyanovich doing quite work.
Having a good game did the young man in that last one for him, and they really needed it so that they could close this one out, because Splyce, I think, had all the momentum in this set, is how I would have described it going to game 3, because they looked like the better team in game 1, even though they couldn't close it out, and they actually won game number 2. So Rival coming in and having this game where basically they led the entire time, and they were able to close it out very cleanly without too much trouble. That's a big one to say, okay, now we're up 2-1, let's take it.
And I don't know how Fineokay continues to be the top player damage of this game, but this Achilles has been going a long way for Rival as they first pick it yet again, 3 games in a row.
Yeah, this one might need to start getting banned totally. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about, though, there's so much stuff that you have to ban. One difference is that likely Splyce will be the first pick when we go into the next game, because they'll get the shoes. Obviously, the losing team gets to pick if they want to be first or second, and first has been highly valued. And if they do, that makes it a little bit easier for them then to maybe ban away whatever they think is that most priority pick from Rival.
And so far, it's just been hit or miss, and now it's been Splyce in the second game for Splyce, as Achilles is the primary selection for Rival. And PandaCat played very well on the Hobwa games 1 and 3, and that was the key to their success victories. Curious as to how Splyce tries to slow him down.
That's right. He's going to be a focal point, I'll say, for the rest of this set going forward. And speaking of PandaCat, I'm glad that he's the focal point for this, because we actually have a chance to hear a little bit more from young man PandaCat. I think it was Tola that sat down with him for an interview.
My thoughts for Rival going into Season 6 as a team, they're really high, actually. The synergy between us is growing, like, very rapidly, and I'm really happy with the way we played our sets, and I think we're going to be, like, one of the best teams. Seeing how teams are playing right now, I'm not really impressed. Not to say, like, we did go 1-1, we did lose to Dig, but it was more of us playing bad and throwing. It was, like, us blockading ourselves. But I think we're going to be, like, one of the best teams in the league. What we learned as a team is that we're really good. We're just throwing a lot. Like, that was something we really learned. Like, we are really good as players and as thoughts and minds as, like, individuals. We just got to play a little bit better and not throw and not be so eager. I think that's, like, one of the biggest things we've learned to do as a team, calm down now. Like, when we get a play, we're always like, do this, do that, do this, do that. But we've really, like, tried to cut that out, because that's been a big throwing point for us. So as a team, we've learned, like, these teams aren't better than us. Not necessarily. We're just playing worse, or we're throwing or something like that. But I am impressed by some of the teams, I guess. Like, PK played lights out versus SK and SSG. Dig played really well versus us, in my opinion. We just threw a little bit, but I mean, that's for now. I think we're really good. We're just throwing. I'm surprised that teams are doing what they're doing. We scrimmed versus SK for a while, and I mean, Neil would just die at level 1 every game, and we'd be like, this isn't the meta, right? And then he would do it in the SPL, and teams would copy that. And I think we killed the Mealsy so many times in our games, and people just kind of walked in and died. And I was like, this isn't the meta. I don't know what's happening, but I guess it was. And that was the biggest surprise to me. Like, people are so unafraid, or they're so, like, you know, they're just so not hesitant to walk in and die for their team, which is kind of crazy to me. That's never been SMITE before. You'd be like, First Blood is like, what are you doing? Now it's like, First Blood, nice. I got this, I got that, I got this, I got that. So it's like, it's a really crazy meta swing. We'll see what happens, I guess. If people keep doing it, you're going to have to figure out a way to stop it. And I think we've already figured it out, so hopefully they do.
Always good to get a chance to hear from PandaCat, and it sounds to me like he's plenty confident. And really, this whole Rival team is. They're going to need some of that, though, to close out against a good Splyce team.
Did you see Twig at the end of that video just popping off there? Probably their set victory against PK. That was an interesting set for sure.
It was a long one, too. It did not come easily for them, so I'm not surprised that they're excited. But we should be just about ready to start moving into game number 4 here, Toli, and that's going to be the real turning point for this one, obviously, because if Rival win, the set's just done, just like that. If Splyce take it on the other hand, though, then we're going all the way to that game 5, and we got ourselves that decider match. So this one really is so critical for both these teams.
And even without seeing Splyce play going into this set, I thought no matter who won, it was going to 5. So I'm kind of predicting Splyce to adapt to the situation. I think that Ratatasker was the issue. The global pressure from Captain Twig was a little bit too much to handle. That one time around Fire Giant, he was hovering in the air for so long that I think Cyclone Spin was just kind of too conservative, where he didn't get the damage off that he really needed to. He was was just waiting for Twig to land. And when your Hunter's not DPSing for that long in a team fight, now all of a sudden Arkel is just winning the race.
That's right. Arkel was able to come out a little bit on top and try to cycle spin that last game. I mean, I was commenting to you about how it felt like PBM had kind of gone a little bit away from an all-tank build. He had the Pythagoras piece for a while and the Gem of Isolation in there. But the best punish for it, who I think would have been Cyclone Spin, was never able to get comfortable in position to start hitting him with some autos.
That's true. And playing the Fafnir, again, I would expect maybe Rival lean on that strategy a little bit. Hachiman and the Fafnir goes a long way, and I think that's the kind of the reason why Splyce took that away in game number 3, not wanting to have that double synergy going forward. But Splyce, just like game number 2 when they were first picking the Splyce.
And another thing to note is the Hom Boss taken off the board too, so we won't be seeing that for Panda Cat. He'll have to show us something else. Obviously, Rival still sticking with the Jormungandr ban. They don't want to have to deal with Aurora on the big snack, and I don't blame them. He had some excellent games. So now the door open for Rival to pick this Achilles yet again for Fineokay. And it's really hard for me to think of a reason why they wouldn't. I mean, he's been playing it so incredibly well. That backbone for this team, sometimes just the full-on team, it feels like from this performance.
That's true. And knowing that global pressure that they had in that other game was not only the Achilles, but they also locked in the Chernobog that time around. Maybe they don't go for that Slavic god. Maybe they instead that they go for the Hachiman, getting Hachiman Fafnir potentially for themselves. It's been kind of working out for Arkel.
Well, the Achilles here is no surprise at all. Like you said, the question is where do they go afterwards? And it's the Jing Wei. So now the question for Splyce becomes, how do they try and limit some of that global potential that was working for them last time? Is it going to be the Ratatosker that we saw? Is it going to be what do they try and take away from Rival?
I don't know what they're going to take away from Rival, but I expect Splyce to still play their own game. Maybe they do pick something for Sino. Wouldn't be the most difficult idea for them to do, knowing that the momentum, you want to take away any momentum from Rival winning. So jungle wouldn't be a bad idea, but I think that they were a little discouraged from the Erlang Shen not having the most effective game in the last one, so they're going to go back to their roots and go for the Zawilish.
I don't mind it, not at all. Sino has looked great on this pick so far, so picking it up again would make some sense. I wonder if they're going to go back to this Cerberus for Aurora. I don't know if it was just because of the Cerberus pick itself, or maybe because there wasn't enough control around him, but it felt like the Cerberus was kind of floundering at times to control the fight enough for the rest of this team. So if they pick it, maybe like a little bit more support there for him so that he doesn't have to do all the work at the front line.
I just think that if they had anyone besides Camosouts with the Cerberus and the Erlang Shen, then maybe Splyce would have had an easier time of going in and out of the action, knowing that Panda Cat can't damage all 3 members unless they all clump up together. So you got to pick and choose your targets. Still love the Cerberus pick regardless, knowing that it could be the flex pick for Aurora or SOT. But Rival really taking an interesting shot now with this Terra pick. The first time we're seeing it in the set.
I think so too. We haven't really seen this be picked up by these squads yet, but it's certainly one that we know that both Polar Bear Mike is okay with playing, and maybe some Fine too, though I doubt it. At this point with the Achilles locked in and his performance, I think that maybe any surprise factor from switching isn't better than just having him on the pick.
I think when you get a quadra kill, despite it being a losing game, fair enough, but still, you got that kind of momentum, you're just going to run the Achilles throughout the set. And Splyce are willing to do this, surprisingly enough, with that kind of success. I think Fineokay is going to continue to be a bully and make those out-rotation plays, but now with PBM on this Terra, you're covering a lot of team fighting options, having that Earth and Fury.
I think so too. I wonder if at a certain point Splyce are saying, listen, Fineokay is going to have this kind of impact no matter what. Let's try and limit everyone else. And that's why we do see this Habwa ban coming through and the Nemesis and trying to limit maybe some of what Twig can do. Yeah, it's hard to bring Fine down, so just try and keep everyone else from being there to follow him up. That might be the idea.
And the thing about the Habwa ban, like, yeah, you are focusing out Panda Cat, but it's not just the damage that you're worried about against the Habwa, it's also the mobility that he provides. It's just another pseudo Giannis where instead of portals and the threshold, you're relying on the river to get you closer or just to disengage.
And you're not wrong, and it was getting them through the slows, and that's what really was so potent about it, was that Splyce had been reliant on those slows so much, and he was essentially just removing them from the equation. But Isis coming through, Rival really changing things up with this Terra, with this Isis here in this 4th game. I mean, this is different from what we've seen from him.
I like it. It's a lot of control, and I would love to see a hyper carry pick out of Rivals jungler for Captain Twig. I'm looking at Kali. I'm looking at Bakasura. Maybe Mercury as well could be a good look for him, knowing that that burst damage is going to be easy to continue between the Terra setup, Isis being able to keep members locked in, and with the damage from Mercury potentially, Fineokay should have an easier time finding members in that execute threshold.
Splyce now considering Vulcan and the Bellona. Bellona would make a ton of sense. She's very strong right down the solo lane. It's hard to lose any matchup with her. Vulcan gets you some knock-up synergy with the Wheelish, which could certainly be strong, and gives Moswell someone who can nuke from the backline. Holy, you think these are coming locked in?
I think so. Vulcan has enough of a range that you can really just also lock down whoever's in that circle protection that's low enough. Maybe kill them before the circle protection pops
Good
off.
point.
So you just drop circles on top of circles. When you're dealing with an objective controlling team fight such as Rival, you got to find ways to bring that to your own fight, right? So it's not only the Vulcan ultimate, the Eagles rally, having the protections and the power that you want to allow Sino diving the backline with your Willish. It's not going to be an easy game for Panicat on the Isis if it is a Bellona locked in.
No, it will not be. He'll be able to get back there without too much trouble, as it is indeed the Bellona that comes through for Solar Troll, very likely. Cerberus going over to Aurora, Vulcan mid for Moswell, Sino on a Wheelish, and Cyclone Spin on Xbalanque is what it's looking like for Splyce. And now, as you said, Rival have to decide what they want to do in the jungle, and what do they want to give over to young man Captain Twig. You said you were really wanting a hyper carry.
Mercury maybe, Ratatasker for global pressure, but yeah, Kali Bakasura would also make a lot of sense to me because you have so much control between Terra, Isis, Achilles. You don't need any more potentially, so just straight up, honestly, do damage. Go Mercury. Why not?
I think so too. As good as the setup from the Rat is, you might have enough of that already with this Isis now in here along with the Terra, and you can probably get away with going with a more aggressive jungler with this pick right now. But Splyce, on the other hand, they've got to start worrying about some of the sustain too, I'm thinking. The Terra and the Isis both provide decent enough healing. Maybe not like from a dedicated healer like you see from someone else, but this is certainly worth building against. Even Achilles with some of his sustain, Splyce have to consider how well they can apply that too.
That's very true. Still kind of waiting out, using all of their bang time. Makes sense. When you're up 2-1 and you're trying to close out the game, you want to make sure your picks and bans is flawless because honestly, even before the game itself, I think like winning a SMITE game at the highest level where these two teams are at, 60% of it or so comes into straight up picks and bans.
I think so too. It's so important, those tools that you grab for yourself. But Fafnir comes in.
Okay.
It is very likely that Achilles for Captain Twig. And this is what we talked about at the beginning, right? Is this maybe catching Splyce off guard more valuable than giving Fineokay something he can hard carry with like he has with this Achilles?
This is a game focused around getting Arco ahead now. With the Jingwei, the Fafnir coerce, making sure that the Achilles is going to be making his rotations and rounds. You're making sure that your French Hunter is going to be comfortable throughout the game.
That's what it seems like to me. They have a ton of protection and setup around him as well, so it should be the path clear now for Arkle on this Jingwei. But what about Splyce? They've got a pretty hefty composition themselves. We'll have to find out once they actually get into the game. Tom and Taco, one more time. Game number 4, give us the call.
Well, the call right now is we will have to see. I love the point that Totally brings up. 60% arguably could be the draft, and I think that's very true. And with that in mind, I'm looking at Team Rival, and with the exception of Isis, if the game goes late, I think this is purple.
I think this is Splyce if it goes late because I think Isis just becomes a balloon and just will explode every single time she tries to show her face. Even now, looking at Splyce's current composition, Rival did what they could, I think, to try and combat. They introduced a lot of anti-knockup base gods. Terra, probably one of the most noticeable ones, but I think that Isis pick only happens as Panicat doesn't want, or he wants a way to escape the knockup ability from Splyce because they have multiple triggers. They've got Moswell on probably one of his better pocket comfort picks, representing on the Vulcan.
This is the original Moswell pick.
This is the original Moswell pick, and I'm really excited to see what he chooses to do with this, but more importantly, it's just that Splyce are giving Sino the tools he needs to be successful. And like I said, Rival did everything in their power with the rest of their composition to try and prevent knockups where they could, but I think that's also what encouraged Splyce to further buckle down on setup.
I agree. I absolutely agree there. Looking at what Team Rival has, though, the reason, I talk about, if it goes late, I think they kind of have it, is that Arkle is not going to get hit by any of the Aurora nonsense. Fineokay is not going to get hit by any of the, by nonsense I mean the ultimate, right? I mean, Arkle can just fly out of it. Fineokay is all good. Panicat's all good. A lot of what is, well, a lot of what Splyce is depending on with respect to setup comes from Aurora and Solo or Troll, and I think that Rival have a lot of options to walk out of that.
I think you're severely underestimating, though, the amount of damage that a late-game Xbalanque and Vulcan can provide.
That's fair.
And those two carries alone are going to pose a whole new series of issues, because even if this game goes all in Rival's control yet again, that base siege is going to be completely different.
I'll have to agree with that one. I will definitely agree with that. We'll see how it all works. But again, I mean, Panicat on the ISIS, this is... I think I liked Panicat on the ISIS, if memory serves. Very interesting pick, and Panicat can certainly be creative with it.
She's just a feast or famine type of
Yeah,
god.
that's
Either
true.
you're going to play incredibly well with her and have a lights-out performance, or you could possibly poop the bed and yourself and just wind up dying off cooldown. Preferably for Rival, though, they're hoping to find themselves in a situation with the former as opposed to the latter.
I mean, to be fair, game number 1, famine. Game number 2, feet, right? Like, so, yeah, it fits right in there with what Panicat's been doing this set. So, we'll see it. We'll see how it works out.
In his defense, he's also had a lot of pressure applied to him consistently, just like Aurora's experiencing right now. Captain Twig making his presence known already. These hunters have been getting comfortable, I think, with not having to worry about those level 2 ganks, and Captain Twig just reminding all of us, yes, junglers can still make this happen.
That's the key there is being able to stay varied. You know, in a best of 3 or a singleton set, you can go out there and just, you know, hit the player on cooldown. In a game of 5, you have the ability to get used to what your opponent's bringing. So when it comes to strategies like that, you've got to keep everybody guessing. And the surprise level 2 gank here 4 games in, definitely a nice look.
Great start for Captain Twig and Arkil. Even Jingwei, probably one of the best things you could ever find yourself in is that first blood, because she's already a little bit more prone, I think, to having a strong laning phase since she is so safe, and since it will be tough for Splyce to try and punish her. But Arkil could potentially rush into the Devo gloves as opposed to the boot strat that he was starting with, but instead, yeah, he's sitting on it.
He's thinking
Bought
about it.
and then changed his mind. I know that Hunter dilemma all too well.
Ultimately, Arkle will grab the boots and head back.
He resold them. I think he's just gonna
Boots
hold fast
won.
for Devos.
Yeah, that might be the deal. Why not go for like rank 2, rank 1 demos?
It's just gold spent. I
Sure.
think that Arkil just wanted to hold all of it for his own. He's probably incredibly close to that needed amount for the fully polished Devo gloves. And yeah, after the red buff, he's already making his way back to base.
There it is, yeah.
Probably gonna buy a full Devos here now. All right.
Not quite.
Yes.
He's got his own thought process going. We'll see how it all winds up here. The booties come out first for the Jingwei.
That was just straight up weird.
That was. Maybe
Change
he's
his mind
listening.
again? Maybe?
He's
I don't know.
listening to us
That's definitely something else. But hey, Arkil really valuing some of that mobility on the Jingwei.
Zetokyo. He's gonna prove you wrong.
What? Hello?
Don't make
Was that even a word?
Do it again. No.
No, actually, Tom, you know, you always really love doing your God impressions, and I think I speak for all of us right now. Can you please repeat that?
No, but Cyclone Spin's gonna get out of here. The Rising Jaguar not good enough, and he's gonna get stunned out after the fact. There's some help, and Captain Twig makes 2 trips to the duo lane and finds his 2nd kill onto Cyclone Spin. Monomi. That's Arkle.
Saying what exactly?
I forget.
Did he teach you that word? Or
Yes. I don't remember.
And you're just trusting him that it's not a bad one?
Honestly, Arkle I would trust.
Okay, that's fair. Arkil is a pretty stand-up guy.
Now, if it was Trix Tank, for example, if Trix Tank told me to say something in his language, I don't know if I would go out and say it.
Ooh, nice dodge from PBM on that Stingent Torment from Aurora. And Cyclone might have just died, but looking to push into Arkil. that boots purchase early on paying off pretty big.
Yeah, for sure. The movement speed coming through in the clutch. A little bit better than the lifesteal you and I had thought was coming through. So a nice move there for Arkle, no pun intended.
If Captain Twig is going to continue making guest appearances in that dual lane, then Boots was definitely the go-to for Arkle in that position, because you just want that chase down aspect. And the only way that you're really going to be able to keep up the Cyclone Spin when he gets that boosted mobility off of the Darkest Night is if you have boosted mobility of your own. Jingwei does get a slight movement speed buff on her own agility, and Persistent Gust could also help to extend the range of that dash.
Gotta keep that all in mind. And Team Rival, 500 gold, thanks to Captain Twig over there, making himself known in the dual lane. Interesting from Captain Twig, though. The Achilles has some movement speed in his own kit, so doing the opposite of what Arkle's doing and actually building his damage item before his boots.
But despite 2 early picks for Rival, Splyce are still holding their own. Only 500 gold is what separates these two teams. Cyclone's maybe a couple of minions off of level 7 here, so it's not like Arkle has a massive lead over him either. And since it is Jingwei, while it's nice to have that extra gold early on, it's Jingwei. She needs a couple of items underneath her belt before she really starts to have some more potency factor.
Yeah, having that critical strike built into the explosive bolts. You want to make use of your power, etc. Arkle with his rank 2 gloves on the way, making his way back into lane here on the Jingwei. Cyclone Spin, still just the boots. Running away. Very afraid is this Splyce dual lane. No ward vision here on the left side, so Cyclone just going to run to his teammate and look to help with the red buff.
Cyclone wanted to make sure he made it over in time as well for all 3 of them to evenly split this farm. Moswell is going to toggle the back harpies by himself, because the 3-man split of the red buff means you should definitely let your solo or your mid laner have a little bit of that solo farm. And it's keeping him right on par with Pancake as well, but guess who's back? Back again. Twig is back, and he's looking for Cyclone Spin.
There's the spin. Oh, not enough damage for the execute. But Twig finds it anyway. 1 shot of whatever. 2-0-1. The jungler out of the UK. Cyclone Spin going to send him all the way back. Now Sino on the run. Polar Bear Mike's dots will do that much. Sino falls down, so the 1-for-1 across the way. Captain Twig, 3 trips to the duo lane, 2 kills and an assist.
Mike's Fafnir hammers have been clean.
Yeah.
Not just in this set, but I think there's maybe 1 game, and it was, I think, Rival's first game with this Fafnir in that Pittsburgh night sets where Mike was a little bit off the mark with those Fafnir hammers, and ever since then, I just feel like he just has such a way about him of threading the needle to find that stun right when it's needed, which should have been an easy 1-for-1 exchange between Splyce and Rival, turned into a 2v1 favorable outcome, all because of a simple hammer stun from Fafnir.
Ton of practice. I think that's really, Polar Bear Mike is just very understanding of how much practice can change. And a lot of these teams have also, not just Rival specifically, but a lot of these teams have really doubled down. You know, we've talked in generalizations about teams coming in, perhaps taking things more seriously, not to say that they weren't taking things seriously once upon a time, but LAN being so different. Haha, Sino. Teams are like doing 2-a-days now. We see a lot of teams either getting up early and scrimming at 10 a.m. or early like that, or noon, and then having a later in the day scrim multiple times a week. I mean, I think that the amount of practice has gone up for teams across the board, Rival being one of them, and seeing the crazy shots like that, the hammer threading, etc. That's all a result.
Well, it's also just the timing of it. Solar Troll could find himself in a little bit of trouble here now. Terra's Blessing going to be expended. Solar Troll, though, still has that Eagles rally and is fighting his way back into Rival. Just got caught out, though, from Fineokay. Is an execute threshold, but Captain Twig not going to be able to find it. Darkest Night for the disengage.
And with Moswell here, it's going to be a walk away from Team Rival. Roar kind of caught him between 2 players. And there's a blink forward from Twiggy. Damage coming through. Captain Twig gets the execute. 3-1-1 for the jungler. Sino in trouble as well. Captain Twig trying to raise that first or last number. And it'll be the first 4-1-1 for Captain Twig. call him Sergeant as he surges forward and puts number 6 on the board for his team.
Sino, I think, getting a little bit too stubborn with those back harpies. It's not that he didn't think that, you know, this farm is worth it. I just think that he maybe was expecting to be able to escape off of Suku and the leap away, but Twig, just knowing better, kept pushing forward. He's got the Talaria boots also, and the Crusher. It's that dot damage that actually wound up being Sino's demise.
I will end this statement with a question mark because I don't like kind of putting this on players, but it seems like Sino's playing frustrated. I can kind of see it just like going for plays that he almost has, kind of stretching them out. It really feels like Sino is upset with the type of game he had and trying to make things happen when they might not be there.
I think that's just Sino's perpetual gamer face. We all have them. For me, my eyes open up really big and I bob my head a little bit. You know?
Get this like Izanami
type
like
a King Cobra type of thing. That's the way I like to look about it, because it's like you can't tell if I'm gonna like, you know, move forward or backwards. I really do shift lane. Everybody's got their gamer face. Some people are fortunate enough that it doesn't look like anything, but as someone who definitely suffers from perpetual gamer face, I think that is just Sino's.
I mean, in the game as well, he just seems to be going for these plays that seem like a stretch. And 1-2-0 isn't a big deal, but it could come back to haunt him. We'll see if that's the case or otherwise. Gold Fury already brought down to 50%. Splyce trying to go for it. There's the transformation coming out from the support, and Splyce are able to get it, but Aurora immediately dies. That said, Polar Bear Mike does as well. Cyclone spins on Arkle, and 2 players dead on Team Rival. Captain Twig and Fineokay here to defend the red buff, but Solo Troll will stiff him out. Captain Twig blinks forward, gets a double stun, and the red buff goes the way of Team Rival.
But Fineokay still pushing forward. Solo Troll's got Panic or Captain Twig distracted for the moment, but it's all about Captain Twig trying to find Sino Clone on the backside. Panic though, gonna be the first one to take down the ship.
Captain Twig, he turns it around. Sino not so sure, buddy. Fineokay helps him out, and Team Rival get everyone out of there.
I thought Mazel was gonna get it with the turret. Captain Twig almost walked straight into his own death, but just barely managing to get outside of that turret range before it could finish him off. And what seemed like was going to be an all Splyce exchange, they get the Gold Fury, sure. They get a couple picks after the fact, sure. But Rival answer back immediately, and that punish, I think, is worth more statement-wise than that Gold Fury.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. When you're Sino and you go, all right, I've got 10% HP, but he's got 3%. I can at least, you know what, I've had a bad game. I'm going to at least get this one. While he's winding up the auto attack, in just comes stun, done. Just, oh man. I felt that one for Sino. I really did. After Sino dies, just put his hands up above his head. He's like, oh man, look, dude. I need some help.
Well, this is where Terra, I think, really starts to become a problem, because Fineokay is level 15. He's out front of everybody right now, even the members of his own team. Panicat probably the next closest to him. And these Terra's blessings, while initially might not seem all that problematic, over time, it's going to continue causing issues for Cyclone Spin, for Moswall, because they're the 2 primary damage dealers for Splyce, and if they get hit by that Terra's Blessing, then it's just all too easy, I think, for Panicat or for Captain Twig to just stay hidden in that back line until their opportunity arises.
There's a perfect example. Terra just lines him up and cuts him down. Fineokay with some damage. More importantly, the setup. Where are you going? The entire hallway is just covered with rocks, and Terra's gonna collapse him like an old Star Wars movie. Tier 1 tower falls down, and Team Rival pushing forward. Sino is rooted, jumps out of there, no problem. Here comes Captain Twig. Feather step, who cares? Twiggy turns around and makes it happen. Likely to get in trouble here. No, just kidding. He ults out, and here comes Fineokay once more.
suspected Cyclone Spin would be hunting in the background, but now Fineokay and Polar Bear Mike doing their best to keep Aurora at bay. T2 Tower gonna wind up falling because there's no one dealing with Rivals damage dealers on the front end. They're able to play more aggressively. Aurora still stuck between a rock and a hard place, gonna jump on out of there for a moment. Purse Shaker straight into Narnia though from Moswell. They're looking for the collapse on the Fineokay, but he's not making it easy.
I like the jump from Solo and Troll. The problem is his team wasn't there. Now they're here and Team Rival are well aware. There's a nice knockup from Mozzie, but Panicat deals with Solo and Troll the best way he knows how, putting him down. Arkle does. Captain Twig does. 3 players in Splyce jerseys getting them dirty. Fineokay by himself pops a Terra's Blessing. Sino able to take care of him, but Panda Cat 3-0-4. Feast or famine, Panda be eaten. Mid lane Phoenix gonna go down at 16 minutes. No, just the Phoenix. There's no way.
It's just the Phoenix. There's no way.
But even still, man, Taco, 16 minutes, right? I have my glasses on, right?
Yes.
The Phoenix just went down, right?
That was 2.5 minutes
wow.
of Rival just pushing into Splyce. Every single time it looked like Splyce was about to have that resurgence forward, Rival just came through with the sucker punch into their own death. And now this is extremely problematic for Splyce because their base has not only been breached, but they're not even at a level where their carries can be comfortable clearing out those fire waves. Those minions alone can probably half health Sino without his own archers and stuff to take care of the initial aggro. So it's going to be tough for Splyce to push this back out and just keep Rival away from diving their backline since they have so much of their map exposed from the mid lane.
Great performance here from Rival across the board. 7-1-5 for the jungler. Captain Twig finds himself level 17. Splyce start up the Oni Fury. Too early on the confirm. Rival able to snatch it away. Moswell too quick on the trigger. There's Sino on the back line. He'll jump over the wall, and nobody catches him. Fineokay dies, and Splyce looking for their own team fight, but the Girdle on the other side.
It's all about whether or not Solo or Troll and Aurora can escape right now. Solo or Troll still looking pretty good for the getaway. Stingent Torment gonna come out. Aurora, Sacrificial Lamb, tossing out his life in the hopes that his carries can get away. And it looks like it might have just been enough because this Bologna has definitely gotten out of there by now. 1-for-1 exchange. Fineokay arguably being a little bit of a better pickup than Aurora, but Rival just don't waste any time whatsoever. So much was used from Splyce on the disengage alone that Rival are just going to take down this Fire Giant, no problem.
Polar Bear Mike barking orders at the squad, letting everybody know that Sino's coming in, and Sino's going home. Fire Giant and the jungler picked up. Hey, Taco, I wanted to ask you this before. Captain Twig, did I demote him when I said call him Sergeant?
Yes.
Oops.
I didn't want to, I didn't want you to feel bad about it because the whole art kill thing already happened.
That's fair. So what's above Captain?
You can go. Wait, why do you want to know this?
So I can use it the next time.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of ranks above Captain, but.
Well, give me like one rank above Captain.
Colonel.
Okay. We'll see how it works out. Team Rival on the right side, bringing the Phoenix down to about 25%. Also, I don't know how to say captain. I only say captain like Captain Crunch.
I think everybody says captain, though, because we're also around Hindu all the time.
That's true. Oi.
This is why.
So we start.
Trying to stop this.
So we start the Green Room podcast every week. Myself, Finch, Aggro, and Hindu Man. Every week we go. Everybody introduce yourself, and all 3 of us go. Oi, I'm Hindu Man. You need to give us your oi. I'm Hindu. You might have to wait for Splyce. No, you don't have to wait for Splyce. Team Rival get a Pyromancer while Captain Twig and Polar Bear Mike fend off the world. Give us your Hindu Man.
I think I'm gonna have to wait on that.
No, you got to do it.
It's weird, but like.
You are just waiting for a team fight.
It's almost as if.
I can see through this.
Sino is about to die, and water is wet. Or
the
is it?
7th
I could
death.
be lying.
Everything around water is wet itself is a different story. Sino finds his 7th death of the conversation. Polar Bear Mike preemptively charging it up. Fineokay knocked up. That's a problem. Moswell with a great ultimate, but Polar Bear Mike puts down 1. Mozzie deals with the solo laner while Panicat takes care of Cyclone Spin. Dashing forward, Captain Twig, call him Colonel. He takes down Moswall. It's a deicide, and that be that. Team Rival take the set in 4 games, but boy, game 4, 20 minutes of play, and what a swinging from Team Rival.
I think that last pick, Fafnir,
Yeah.
is what really sold in the execution of Splyce. Also, it was just the way that the early game panned out. Unfortunately for Splyce, they were just never really able to work their way into the action early enough for Signer to get that snowball effect that Twig found. Ultimately, I just think that while Solo or Troll played to the best of his ability, Fineokay over time kind of just showed what experience does.
What was impressive for me here out of Team Rival was that they were able to do it through multiple members. We saw Fineokay kind of do it. Then we saw kind of Panicat be really strong. And Captain Twig just sort of ran the game in the last one that we watched. A lot of different people beat up Splyce here, and I think that's one of the most impressive things you can do as a team.
And Rival got to be feeling pretty good about the way that Game 4 was handled at least. Games 1 through 3, you know, left probably a little bit for this team to be desired.
I mean, it's the defending world champs.
Well, no, I'm saying from Rival's perspective.
That's going to be hard.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's supposed to be, but Rival at the same time, I think, are a team that hold themselves to a certain standard, especially with how much success they've had already in Season 6. So this is a team that, sure, this is a victory, but it's just another, peg in the wall. They're still looking to make themselves even better.
Without a doubt. You saw the dedication and everything and how it winds up. 20 minutes. That's still absurd to me, in all honesty. Across the way, Splyce kind of showing some signs of some mortality. Sino, unfortunately, not his best day. We'll reflect on the set and then some. Finch, Tolly, break it down.
Well, a big win for Team Rival across the set, but in particular, this Game 4 was dominance for them, Totally, from really just the beginning of the game all the way up until the end. And I gotta wonder if Splyce at any point are gonna be kicking themselves about how much they let this Achilles through. It really seemed like whether it was Twig or Fine that had it, it was running the games.
And because of the other draft between Isis for Panicat, also Fafnir Terra for the frontliners, it was very obvious what the idea was for Rival to protect Arkle. And what way do you do that by? Ganking his lane 3 times in a row. Twig was just all over that lane.
And there was this fight in particular by the red buff that I think was on Splyce's side of the jungle, where it really looked like Rival had finally overextended a little bit too far.
Yes.
And they couldn't clean up, I think, only 1 kill in that whole engagement. It was too much control. Fineokay was on the Terra, the Isis with the Spirit Ball and the silences, stopped Solar or Troll's damage earlier on in that channeled bludgeon, but they couldn't fight through all of that to bring anyone low enough for an actual kill.
And I love the fact that Fineokay switches his style from the Achilles to the Terra because Rival know that they're going to gank the dual lane so much, it's almost impossible to successfully kill a Terra. So they know that Fineokay will be just honestly fine and okay in any 1v2 situation.
And this is the disengage, or Aurora was trying to leave, and he has to sacrifice himself just to try and make it so the rest of the team can get out. But Splyce never got their legs underneath them. And yes, they're not playing with Divios, and it is so difficult, I think, to say just how big the impact of that spreads out. But it's not as if the rest of the team looked perfect either. Splyce looked like they got outplayed here in this set to me today, totally. In games 1 and 2, I thought that was all Splyce, but from then on, it was Rival.
They definitely did. I think Moswell had a difficult time on this Vulcan compared to Panicat going 7-0-8 on this Isis, continuing the 100% win rate streak on this Goddess. So interesting to see Panicat really switch up his style to go from Habwa to Poseidon to the Isis here. So it's been working out for Rival, and that's important to keep your backline safe and protected the way Twig has been this aggressive on the Achilles going from the Ratatasker in the previous game.
And I've been making Pandacat's mid lane performance against some of these other big name mid mages my storylines, one of my headlines going into these games. I might have to think of something else, man. Pandacat has answered every last one of these tests that have been brought to him, at least from what I've seen. He has not hurt this team. In fact, he's risen in several occasions when you would have expected a seasoned mid laner able to falter. He's looked great.
And everyone from Rival has honestly looked great. Arkle benefiting from all those ganks, PBM setting it up in the front line. And I love the fact that they're focusing out that dueling, not only to help out Arkle, but also to really cripple Cyclone Spin.
Right.
The very first kill onto Aurora, the next two were onto Cyclone Spin, a late game Splyce, and also a player that could get easily disrupted, I think, is Cyclone Spin, so focusing him out, plucking him out of the action from the comms is a good way to do it.
Anything to maybe try and shut that down over there in the duo lane could certainly be strong for them. But I wonder how much of this, for Splyce, it comes down to the picks and bans. Like, how much they need to go back and convene with Kabam to, obviously pull him into that and talk about maybe making some other adjustments, because they get rid of the Habois, but they can't get rid of everything, and it felt like maybe they couldn't quite do enough to slow down Rival.
They definitely didn't. They didn't really expect this kind of dual lane pressure. I think as good as picks and bans were for Rival with all the control that they had, I think that Splyce just got outplayed at the end of the day. They didn't anticipate the style and rotation that Twig had, because he wasn't ganking the dual lane as heavily as he did in game number 4, so that threw Splyce for a loop.
Well, we should be able to go hear a little bit from the winners of this one, too. Again, it's a big set for Team Rival, so I'm sure they're happy after being able to grab that win. Let's go over to the two of them to hear their thoughts in the interview.
We're here with Captain Twig and Fineokay of Team Rival, just taking the victory 3-1 versus Team Splyce. You know, it's interesting, Splyce hasn't played just yet. What do you think about going up against them as their first time? Do you think this was easier or harder than it could have been?
I think Splyce was very much what we expected kind of going in. Just seeing their kind of style of play from Worlds, especially playing with Obey against them in the quarterfinals, it felt very similar. They destroyed tanks, like their synergy and like strategy going into games was kind of similar in a way, and it was hard to play around, I think, especially for Mike and Alec, but like I think we did well to play around what they wanted to do, and so feeling great.
And Fineokay, you've kind of been the public star so far in Season 6, and I'm sure that you're aware of it by now, but when you're making plays like getting that quadra kill onto the Achilles, what exactly is going through your mind as those moments are happening?
Oh, that one specifically, I was really, really confused. They must have just not known that I was going to be there, because there's a wave under my tower, so that's why I kind of just walked over, and then I see Sino dive the tier 1, I see somebody else dive the tier 1, and I'm just like, I'm just going to kill all these people. Like, I guess they just didn't call off the rotation like soon enough, and that specifically, but in general, it just feels really good. I mean, you don't really think about it like while you're doing the play, like while you're making the play, you're just trying to do everything you can to, you know, play the best you can, and afterwards, like maybe seconds afterwards, your teammates hype you up and stuff. That's what feels good.
Here's another specific personal question to you, Captain Twig. You've always had a type of play style that works with the rest of the team. You know, whether you're called a setup man, a utility player, a role player, whatnot. Don't get me wrong, you got your million kills last game. But this whole Rival team seems to be similar to that. Polar Bear, Mike, Fineokay. You're surrounded by people that befit the situation. Do you feel at home on this Team Rival squad?
Absolutely. I couldn't be happier with the team. Like, we've got the carries, we've got the ego players. Panda Cat is all about that. He loves taking the farm, taking the kills, going, like, being opportunistic, and same with Alec in a way, and Kenny, Arkil. They're all carry players, and they all know what like to do to kill people, and I'm really happy, and all I have to do is facilitate that with Mike.
Well, you can also facilitate by way of kills. You got a whole bunch of that last one and brought it home. 20 minutes, it's impressive. Congratulations in your set. Captain Twig, Alec, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Well, it's good to hear from the boys. Confident afterwards. And like you said, it seems like Twig is finally at this point now where he can feel comfortable in a team where he knows that they can win for him. All he's really got to do is line those pieces up and they'll knock him down.
9-1-9 on this Achilles.
That's pretty good.
That's quite a facilitator, I would say. You know, having the assist and the kills. Definitely an MVP performance for him in game number 4 to close out the set. And this is the first non-5-game set for Rival.
That's right.
They lost to Dignitas in 5. They beat Pittsburgh Knights in 5, now beating out Splyce in 4. Granted, it was with Solo Troll, not with Divio, so there's still going to be a little asterisk under this set.
I think so, and it'll be hard for them to not be just a little bit there, but I wonder what they're going to do with all their extra time now. Maybe travel totally so they didn't have to do a 5-game set. Yeah, they got the whole world's their oyster. We'll certainly see. Let's get those standings up on the screen. I want to see everyone's shaken up. Rival, wouldn't be surprised if they're high up. They're 4th place now, a little bit behind Knights just in terms of game differential. SK right behind them too. Dignitas still untouched first. And Splyce now finally on the board, just I imagine not in the way they would have liked, only above Trifecta and LG.
And SK Gaming sitting at 2-2. It's an interesting middle-of-the-pack team that has a lot of potential on that roster specifically. Wouldn't be surprised if this season progresses that we'll see them kind of squeeze into that top 3 position.
I think that they've got a good shot. It's so close, I would say, up at the top right now between all these teams, and we haven't really clearly separated them out. Dig and Knights, obviously, and Rivals team, they're up at the top, but I think they're going to have some company without a doubt.
Oh, absolutely, because this is all leading up towards HRX, so you got to be able to get to the top of the top before that starts.
That's right. We're trying to go to the big event, High Res Expo. Again, it's going to be towards the end of the year, so make sure you go to highresexpo.com, pick up those tickets, make sure you're there. Tully and I will be there. You saw a sample of his dabbing earlier. I keep mine under wraps. You got to come to the actual show if you want to see the Finch dab, and I'll make sure I provide one of those for you. It's something to see.
So last year it was, what, the crisp handshakes?
That's what it was, yeah.
And now this year it's going to be the Finch dab?
It'll be a crisp dab coming your way.
Crisp dab.
I keep it that way, coming your way. And that's going to do it, at least for week 4 for the SPL, where there's plenty more action coming your way. Now, I believe we're not having SCL and SML this week, so it'll be the SPL starting up Thursday, Friday. You're still going to want to check out Esports Weekly on Wednesday, though, so make sure that you're there for that. But we'll see you all next week. Again, thanks to everybody in the back. Great job, all my other casters, too. And you guys, have a great rest of your day.
The SMITE Pro League, brought to you by Skillshot, High-Res Studios, Titan Forge, INAP, SteelSeries, and Respawn.